Did anything happen that you were like, I want to start a channel for these reasons?
Well, I do it for the money. I have a music background.
When you were starting your channel, did you have a plan of like, this is the kind of content I want to create?
People ask me all the time, and they reach out. And when someone says, "Hey, I want to start a YouTube channel, I want to make, I want to make money, I want to be a YouTuber and get free stuff," it's like,
I'm fearful of the day that my kids leave the house.
kids are a blessing, and they're a gift that God trusts you with one of His children, because they are His children. That little girl is not going to live in your house a couple years from now because she's going to grow into somebody else.
What do you think is good advice for someone that is looking to purchase a tractor? You're Joe from Joe the Farmer, right?
I believe so. I think so.
You believe so. How long have you been doing YouTube?
We uploaded our first video, I want to say it was June of 2020. So we are the typical channel that started during the pandemic. And a lot of it was started because we had a lot of family all over the country and friends all over the country. And you probably learned by now, I'm a pretty painful extrovert. I heard on Tony's episode, he said he was an introvert. I'm not. Not at all. I did not get the shyness gene. And I actually recharge by talking to people and being around people. So, it really kind of, it was challenging for me to be in the middle of hundreds of acres on a farm and not meeting new people and talking to new people. So we were like, oh, well, why don't we try just doing some videos and stuff like that? We'll show people what we're doing out here. And a lot of people are stuck in their houses. Maybe it'd be kind of fun for our friends and family to see us working on the farm, playing on tractors, watching the kids, do their thing. And that's why, I never edited video before. Didn't really have any cameras. I remember we were sitting there watching church on TV, and after church we were like, we're watching a lot of YouTube. Why don't we just try it? And then I ordered a GoPro. I think it was like a GoPro 7 or 8 or something. And it showed up, and we just started filming. It was the most awkward, weird thing when you first start bringing a camera around you and you're kind of pointing at yourself. But then you look at the footage and you kind of learn those different things. And we just really fell in love with the process. And we got to really share some things when the kids were young with family members who wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So it was really, it was super easy. And the weird part was when people started interacting with our family who we didn't know. And, it's almost like, I think the really kind people show up in your first 1,000 subscribers, but eventually, some grumpy people show up too as you grow. But it was great. I loved meeting the new people, and still a lot of them follow our channel, which is such an honor and such a, to me, that's probably one of the most, what's the best word I'm thinking of? It's like the most appreciated thing. And it's just really, I don't know, I just really appreciate that they stuck with us for 4 years watching us on our farm. I mean, it's amazing. So yeah, about 4 years.
It's a cool experience interacting with people, and then meeting them afterwards is cool too. Like, if you ever do any public meetups where you actually meet people that, you've been interacting with and have been watching your videos, it's cool. I remember the first time I was around Tony and we were in Maine, and he had this little kid come up to him and was just so excited. And that was a really cool experience to see. And it kind of humbled me in a way, right? Because numbers on a screen aren't a big deal, but there's people behind those numbers, and that person is taking time out of their day to spend it with you. And it's just it's cool. There's no other way to put it.
I remember Holly and I, Holly's my wife for anyone who doesn't know us. By the way, our channel is Joe the Farmer, at Joe the Farmer on YouTube. And we'd love to have you follow us on Facebook as well. But anyway, shameless plug. Holly and I were talking one time about the watch hours, because on YouTube, you'd have to have a certain amount of subscribers and then watch hours. And then I started adding up the hours. I was like, well, let me divide this by 24, see how many days people have watched, how much human time has been spent watching us. And it gets crazy, the way that just kind of blows up. It's just wild how, again, you just think to yourself, right now while I'm talking to you, there's people across the world watching me play around and work on my farm. That does get kind of strange when you start thinking about it that way. And especially when you grow and you're like, yeah, there's 1,000 people every hour watching me. It's like, what? How's it possible? But
That's crazy.
the extrovert in me is like, I want to go meet all of them. I want to go say hi. I want to shake their hand.
Yeah.
Like, ask them who they are. So I've definitely had some cool experiences where people have come up to me and said, hey, well, we love your videos, and we've been watching for a long time, and how's Holly and how's the kids? And at first you're kind of weird, like, how do you know my wife's name? But then you're like, man, they're bought in, and that is so cool. And thank you for having the courage and just being kind enough to come say hi. Like, so it takes a lot to go walk up to somebody you don't know and just say hi, right? Like that's not an easy thing for some folks to do. And I could just tell anyone who's listening. I mean, if you have a content creator that you really enjoy, I mean, go say hello to them. Shake their hand. Go to a meetup. Go to someplace and get to know them, because that's why 99.9% of us started this, is just to meet other people. YouTube really is. It's a powerful way of community and getting to meet people who aren't. It's not a closed-minded thing, but you're meeting people who share your interests. Like Jake and I both love machines. Like that's just like your whole livelihood's based on it. And we could probably sit here and talk about machines until midnight, and both of us would be like, man, that was an awesome hang. And
Yeah.
my wife would be like, I cannot believe you guys talked about that for that long.
Well, that might be what happens. Who knows?
You never know. But yeah, man, it's been about 4 years. So long answer to a succinct question.
So one of the questions I would ask would like, what was your driving force behind starting your YouTube channel? And you kind of explained that, but did anything happen that you were like, I want to start a channel for these reasons, other than kind of what you've explained?
I think that I have a music background. I think you know that. And I was a touring rock musician for a handful of years, and play guitar, sing. Always have, really since I was, really little. And being creative is a huge driver for me. Having an outlet is a huge driver for me. Telling a story is a huge driver for me. And I love my farm. Like, it is one of the most beautiful places in the world, hands down. And again, the farm is the star of the show, and a lot of it is, I think, an expression of gratitude and just appreciation for the fact that we get to call that home. Like, it's just, you want to share that with everyone appropriately. Like, I know there's a lot of folks, I get comments all the time. People are like, gosh, you're living the dream. I'd love to have that dream. I'd love to have the dream. And it's like, well, we had this dream too, and we worked our butts off to be able to do it. And we took a leap of faith to do it. And it was not easy to make that purchase. And like, we did not inherit our farm. It wasn't family land. The equipment that we have, we had to purchase. We had to start from scratch, really. And we didn't start with a huge basis of knowledge. Like, your family was horse farmers. I didn't grow up as farmers. Like, I always wanted to be on land and on a ranch or a big piece of property, because I like space. I like to ride four-wheelers and UTVs and tractors, and like, those things are just like, I wanted to have space to do that, but I just didn't grow up with that upbringing. So we had to work really hard for it, and we just took the leap of faith and did it. And that's why I think it's really cool to share it with people and be like, gosh, look at, like, God is good. Look how awesome this is. And it's not hard, if you watch our videos, to tell my enthusiasm for the farm that we have and for the machines that we have that can help us take care of the property. Because, I've said it before in our videos, it kind of blows my mind. Holly's grandfather was a farmer. Her great-grandfather was a farmer, but they were in Alabama. It's a different kind of farming. And, if they would have had some of the tools and machines that we have now, gosh, what a blessing that would have been back then, to have the ability to have transportation and leveraging a machine to be like 10 men as opposed to one. And, gosh, the Baumolite tree saw in the front of the skid steer. I could cut down more trees than any one person with a chainsaw, and I could do it fast. So,
Sure
it's just stuff like that. It's like, what an amazing time to be alive. So
now you do this YouTube kind of, I won't say part-time, but like outside of your career. And it's like, would you say that it's kind of your passion, and it's something that you really enjoy doing, which is why you're doing it?
Well, I do it for the money. We make millions of dollars every month, as people in the comment section would let you know. Like, we're all just rich and showered with gifts and limos and private planes. But no, yeah, I have a day job that I enjoy doing. It's not part of my channel, so I don't really talk about it. But we're raising 3 kids. My wife is working at my kids' school. Like, our family is very busy with essentially three teenagers now, which is unbelievable. They're very close in age, and we're very close. You know, the five of us are super close. Like, we're always together, always doing stuff together, always supporting each other at different events that they're involved in. And, you know, right now is not the time for me to be a full-time anything because we're everywhere. But I wouldn't say it's part-time because we do spend, you know, our whole family spends a lot of time on it, but we make time for it. You know, it's a priority for us. And the community side that we've grown through it really motivates you to find time, because like I don't play golf. I don't really have a lot of hobbies outside of being in the outdoors. Like, I love to hunt, and that, you know, land management's a part of our channel. I don't really show a lot of whole actual hunting on my channel, but you know, the land management's a big part of it. You know, working on the tractors when we have projects to do, we just share those things. You know, there's always stuff to do, as you know, from, you know, growing up on a piece of property, and we just share those stories. And it's not a lot of extra time to film it. You know, it does take some, you know, a little bit of extra time to film and move cameras and, you know, make sure the angles are right and really tell the story appropriately. But it's the editing part that becomes, as we've talked about before, like, that's the part that becomes, you know, a stressor for me, because like, if I film something and there's snow on the ground and then all of a sudden, you know, it comes out when the sun shines out and it's middle of summer, it just doesn't make sense. It's not an appropriate time to tell that story, you know. And I mean, we're full-time everything right now. Full-time dad, husband, everything. Lots going on.
I get what you mean about like the filming, you know, in one portion of the year and then needing to edit. You know, that's something that I've currently struggling with. I think, you know, as we talked about, because there's definitely some snow on the ground in that one video that I'd like to post, but I don't necessarily want to wait until next spring to post it, you know, when it does finally get done editing, in the editing process.
I think a lot of it depends on what kind of, you're going to hear me say this in this, you know, conversation a lot, the story. You know, does the snow matter to the story? If it doesn't matter to how much a tractor can lift, then it doesn't matter at all, because people are going to find it because they're, you know, someone's coming to that kind of video because they want to answer a question, right? And I'm a question guy. I love asking questions about, you know, everything and learning about stuff. And you know, if I want to learn what my machine can do, or how to do it, or technique, you know, I'm going to watch YouTube videos on it. And sometimes I'll find inspiration to like do a video because you're trying to look for something that's just not there. And you and I, as people that do, you know, content creation, I could do a video and I think it's a fantastic video, and there's just, it just doesn't do well. But the truth is, like, it doesn't get 100,000 views, but that's probably because there's not 100,000 people looking for the answer to that question. But for the 4,500 people looking for the answer to that question, they become really bought into your story because like, this person shares the same questions I have. And those 4,500 views may be better than anything else that you ever do. I did a video on a mini Jeep that has almost 2 million views. My big butt riding in a mini Jeep, which that is so small of a thing that we do on our channel. But,
right,
you know, a lot of people watched it and a lot of people subscribed from it, but nowhere near the amount of people that would subscribe from it if we were like, hey, we're going to tell our story about us fixing something on the farm today. Well, if you look at the percentage basis, we have more people subscribing to that video, becoming part of our story, than the one that gets tons of views. So, you know, I think that when it comes to, is there snow on the ground or not, there it's not relevant. But if your video is about, this is the most epic summer vacation we ever took, and there's snow on the ground, then it's a little confusing.
I think that's a good point that you made with like, just because a video did really well doesn't mean that it was the best thing for your channel. Or at least that's kind of what I took from what you said. Not exactly what you said, but if you can look at some YouTube, you can look at some YouTube channels and like, they have a repeated following that's coming back because their content is up to date and they're sharing their life. And then some channels, they put together a very specific video, right? So like the one that I did, that's nothing to do with my life. It's got nothing to do with the time of year. It's very specific to that task with that tractor. So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter if there's snow on the ground and it was posted in June or July, because it's not like it's out of place, because we don't have those people that are coming back on a twice a week, 3 times a week basis to watch life, because that's not what the channel is.
Yeah. And I've had to think about that with my channel because my channel is, it's our life, but I can't post every day. Like, it's almost like, I used the golf example earlier. Like a lot of guys our age love golf, right? They're playing golf all the time. Well, I don't hate golf. It's just not my thing, right? Like, you hate golf?
No,
You play all the
no,
time?
I love golf. I don't play near as much as I would like to, but that's
So,
like my one thing.
but if you think of that, like, in a certain window of time when you have kids and you have a wife and you have responsibilities and a job and, people are accountable to you. Is this the season of your life where you're supposed to become a PGA Tour golfer? Like, are you going to spend
Nope.
7 days a week at a golf course, like working to lower your handicap? No. And same thing with YouTube. Like, you have to think about, why are you starting a YouTube channel? People ask me all the time and they reach out and, I want to be kind, but I also want to be realistic. When someone says, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel, I want to make money, I want to be a YouTuber and get free stuff. It's like, time out. Like, you're going to be so burned out in 3 months that you're going to waste 3 months of your life. What are you so excited about doing that you can't stand but to stand on a rooftop and tell everyone about it? And 55 days from now, when you're done and you've lost your voice and you still want to tell more people about it, and you're so passionate about it that you love it so much that you want to put yourself out there in the world, take all the criticism, take everyone saying, who do you think you are, all those different things, and still tell people about it. That's when you start a YouTube channel. When you are an expert at something, or you are so new at something that you have a tremendous, gap of knowledge that you just want to get so much feedback from others while you're learning something, and that feedback motivates you. There's so many different reasons why to start it. But like, when I hear people say, I want to make money, or must be nice, you get free stuff on your channels. Like, I mean, I get it. Human nature is, you see someone who's like, you get a sponsored item or you get something and it's, free. They think that you're just like selling your soul for, for whatever the item is, put whatever the dollar amount is, doesn't matter. But what people don't think about is the tens of thousands of hours that someone has spent, developing what their passion is. And does that fit in the passion? Because if it does, then yeah, let's talk about it. But if it's like, Joe the farmer is going to sit here and talk to you about the Barbie dream house, it's like, well, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would he be talking about that? Well, he's getting paid. Or, I don't want to begrudge other channels, because I know some people do this full time and it's their job. It becomes a business and becomes, that their time is money. And if some alarm company or some green juice company wants to give them money to do videos on it, well, that's up to them. And if you're going to watch free content and not have a subscription, to do it, well, fast forward it, or that's the time to go hit the restroom or do whatever you want to do. Let them do their thing and move on. But I think it all comes back down to, why do you want to start a channel? What's your motivation? And for me, I wanted to meet people. My buddy Capper, Capper Outdoors, I watched his channel before I ever got to know him, and I actually just sent him a note one time saying, like, hey man, love your channel. Just want to thank you for the countless hours of entertainment. And he reached out to me and we just started talking. We became friends. Like, it's like a lot of other people on YouTube. You get to know other people and you become, friends with them and collaborate with them. And, he and I were together at Josh's Stony Ridge Farmer. We were at his place. And Capper's like, man, why'd you start a YouTube channel, man? You're trying to be famous, trying to build a big channel. I said, I got to be honest. Like, I started my YouTube channel because I want to meet cool people, have cool experiences, and just tell stories. Like, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I think at the time I had like 4,000 subscribers, 5,000. And I was like, I made it. I'm here. Like, this is everything I wanted to do. Like, I'm hanging out with fun people, talking about tractors and, talking about the outdoors. And, that was like, it was fun. I'm hanging out with my buddies, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? And as it's grown, viewership or audience or views or whatever you want to say, like, that has not changed. Like, I still just want to have a good time. I want to talk about cool stuff. I want to meet cool people, and I want to have fun experiences. Like, yeah, I'm still having a ball. I feel like I'm still learning constantly.
We all
Because
are.
well, yeah, but I'm not a tech guy. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to tell you, like, I edit mostly in iMovie. because for me it's easy. I have Final Cut Pro. I've edited in it before, but like again, I'm trying to make things simple, get the story out there, tell what you're trying to tell, and then grab the camera and go tell another story. Like, but I also like I try not to do the filler videos. Where again, a lot of people do it. Like once your channel grows to a certain point, it's almost like you can go, you know, a lot of people joke around and say you could do a video of you just go on the mailbox and see who sent you a letter, and people will watch it. You'll get 100,000 views on it, you know. But I'm not. I'm obviously not there. A and B. I don't really want to be there. That's not like that to me. That just seems like I'll let somebody else make that video.
When you were starting your channel, did you have a plan of like, this is the kind of content I want to create? I mean, you wanted to bring people along for the story with your farm, but did you have like I want to focus it on this niche, or were you just kind of like, I'm going to tell my story and it is going to be what it is, and we're going to see where it goes?
I think that's a great question. And I think that the most honest answer is, you know, I would love to say that I'm so, you know, confident in myself and my abilities that it was just like, well, this is my way or the highway. And, you know, we just did things I wanted to do. But the truth is you get feedback, right? And I thought I was going to start and be like an outdoors/hunting channel, like land management, deer management, those things. And part of that is equipment. So I'm very passionate about equipment. I'm very passionate about land management, and I just enjoy deer hunting. Like I honestly, if I never shot another deer or turkey in my life, I'd still go out there and watch them. I'd still go hunt with binoculars. You know, like I just enjoy that process. It's very calming for me. Yeah, that part of it is just like, that's my relaxation time, right? My stillness, as the Bible would call it. You know, we need to have our stillness. And, you know, what I realized very quickly was that people were far more interested in me telling stories about the side-by-side I'm using, the tractor I'm using, the implement I'm using, how I'm using them, you know, why I use them, what kind of equipment they may need for a property they need, versus me talking about hunting. Because to be quite honest, there's a whole lot of channels out there that talk about hunting. And there's also now a whole lot of channels out there talking about farming and homesteading and everything else. But the more the merrier. I think there's room for everyone. And, you know, Joe the Farmer was kind of started as like, we had a bunch of different channel names that we kind of kicked around. But again, it came back to like, let's just keep this really simple. My name's Joe. We're on my farm. And when I'm on the farm, I'm Joe the Farmer. When I'm at home, I'm Joe the dad or Joe the husband or, you know, Joe the whatever. But on our videos, that's when I'm being Joe the Farmer. That's my life on the farm, doing farm chores and sharing it with my family and with the audience that chooses to come along with us. So, yeah, I think that the outdoor equipment and farming and all those things was very deliberate.
You've got your farm, and where do you see the farm in the future? Like, are you working towards a particular goal, or are you kind of already there and you're just maintaining it?
Our farm it's a maintained thing. I think that we struggle sometimes with, you know, we have some barns that are old, really old, and, you know, they keep the equipment covered and they keep things secure. They're safe. You know, there's cameras on them, there's alarms on everything, but they're also falling apart, and it's a constant maintenance hassle. So I see us building at some point, doing a nice barn that we can do a lot more projects in. I think the channel would enjoy some of those things. I'd love to have a lift to where I can actually get equipment off the ground. As I'm getting older, you know, you're a big guy too. It's hard for, you know, the 6'4" guys to be laying under equipment, especially smaller equipment. You know, changing the oil in the ATV or the side-by-side or whatever is not as fun as it was, you know, years ago. So I think that building some facilities out there would be important, but really, you know, the long-term goal of the farm is to be a family farm for when Holly and I are gone. You know, the goal is to build it to where there's memories there, there's holidays there, there's random Tuesdays there. Like there's, you know, we've done school there, we've done all kinds of different things on that land, and just to continue to build memories. And then at some point, you know, I don't know if the kids will want to build homes out there or what, but like that was very deliberate to say, it's a family compound. Like it's, our friends, Guido owns the place next door. If you watch our channel, the friendly little 71-year-old that lives next door, and
Hmm.
his family are dear friends of ours. But there's just a lot of memories there. So I wouldn't say that we're trying to build it into being some massive farming operation. I think that we want to plant a lot more fruit trees, a lot more things that will be sustainable to have us be able to provide food on there, long term. But yeah, it's just a homestead. Like more infrastructure, more gardening areas, more ways to make it easier as Holly and I get older. She doesn't age. I
So
age.
what about animals? Are you going to pick up animals as it goes?
Yeah, I think that right now the animals I'm raising are teenagers,
Hmm.
and we don't we don't have time to be kind enough to livestock. But I can 100% see. I have a friend of mine who he raises Wagyu beef, and I could see as he continues to get older, potentially buying his herd from him and taking that over at some point.
That
We
sounds
have,
exciting.
oh yeah, I mean it's not only exciting, it's also delicious. So I mean, let's not
Yeah.
lie. The perfect burger is 50-50 Wagyu ground beef and venison. Wagyu ground beef is too fatty to put on a grill, and venison is too real dry to make a burger out of. You mix those two together, it is burger nirvana. It is wonderful.
Hmm.
And even a smash burgers is even better. But
That sounds fantastic.
it is fantastic, and it makes me hungry thinking about it. But yeah, I think everything's open. Holly and I right now are just in a place with our kids to where we're like in the seventh inning of the ball game. Like it's hard to think about. We've all been so close for so long since they were babies because we had 3 kids in 4 years and none of them were twins. And we've been doing this parent thing full on for a while now, and we really want to enjoy the last few years of all of us being under one roof. Which I know they come back in the helicopter here and there, but it's like I don't know. We just really want to kind of see what happens, launch them, and then we'll probably take a breather and say, okay, what do we want to do? Like what do we want to build? Do we want to continue building this homestead out, or do we want to build some tiny houses or some income properties on there, or like the world really is our oyster. So
I'm fearful of the day that my kids leave the house. Like I'm not mentally prepared for that to happen. And I have a long time, right? I've got one that turns 2 in 21 days, and I've got one that turns 5 in April. So they're both very young. But just imagining a life where they didn't live with us is just strange to think about.
so again, I love meeting people. I love talking to people, and I love learning from others, especially people who are my elders. And I had some of the best advice I've ever. So I was given some of the best advice ever. And for anyone who's listening to this who has young kids, you will understand what this means. And they say God gives you teenagers, so you want them to leave. Like He prepares you through windows of time. And when my kids were 2 and 5, I didn't understand that either. I was like, gosh, we're going to live with me forever. I mean, my daughters are both my little princesses, and my son's going to be my little
Mm-hmm.
prince. Like they're just wonderful. And then as they start to become other adults and go from being like your children to your roommates, you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you know what, man, it's going to be great when you get a place of your own. That's not going to be the worst thing ever.
My
Because
4-year-old is becoming that. Like she's becoming her own person, and she's in school. She does dance, and she has like these extracurriculars that are like her own thing, and it's really cool to watch that transition happen, going from like that little kid in our house to like
Yeah.
she's becoming her own person. It's
Well, this is the hard truth, Jake. And this has nothing to do with tractors or with machines or anything else, but kids are a blessing, and they're a gift that God trusts you with one of his children, because they are his children. And what I will say is that little girl is not going to live in your house a couple of years from now, because she's going to grow into somebody else. And that's the part that really, I mean, that is sobering when you think about it that way. But the bright side of it, you'll be so excited to meet the little girl she grows into. Because my oldest now she's a young woman. Like we toured college last weekend. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I touring a college when we just brought her home yesterday? Like this, she's a baby. She can't go to college. Babies don't go to college. But the truth is, they do. And that little girl is going to grow and, enjoy every second that you have, and give yourself grace when you get frustrated. Because listen, man, we dads need to stick together. There's not a whole lot of outlets out there saying like, hey, I know as a guy, it's, we're supposed to suck it up and just not feel anything. But man, these are hard times to raise children. Like we have challenges that you and I didn't face as kids. But, just enjoy every second that little girl's in your house, because she's going to grow up into a woman, and it happens fast, dude. Real fast. So how's that for
Too
sobering?
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very sobering.
Yeah.
No, it's I say that my only regret with having kids is not having them sooner. I
think that's common.
I love the kids. They're awesome. And I'm relatively young. I just turned 30. So I was 25 when she was born, which at the time I thought was really young. But I wouldn't have been mad if it happened sooner. But we take what God gives us.
We do, and it's the double-edged sword. When you're too young, you can't afford them, and when you can afford them, barely. You're always tired and grumpy. So it's like it just is what it is, man. It's life, but the truth is, just love them. Guide them in the way that they need to be guided, and encourage other dads as you see them. I'll never forget when my son was born. He's my youngest, and I had been through this process twice already at the same hospital. The nurses were like, "You guys were just here." We're like, "We know. We just had another one. Like, this just keeps happening." And I saw this young dad, and it was in the picture area, because the first time I did, I'm not paying $50 for a picture, and I regretted it. So this young man must have been 21 years old. He was young, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. Like he was terrified. I grabbed him. I said, "Hey, come here, bud." He goes, "Yes, sir." I said, "Hey, you have 2 jobs, okay? And this is all you have to do. Don't make this harder than it is." I said, "Love your wife and stay married, and keep that kid alive." I said, "If you do those 2 things, you win." And he just looked at me like his shoulders kind of like relaxed, and he's like, "Thank you." He's like, I have no idea. I was like, God will download the user manual, man. You're gonna be fine. Like, I never changed a diaper till my firstborn, and it was like,
Same.
No problem. Knew exactly what to do. The user manual was downloaded. Like, I did what I was naturally built to do, and that's, we talk about land, we talk about tractors, we talk about farming, and building a homestead, and I think it translates into a lot of what we're talking about, because like that's what we're built to do. We are built to be men and providers and hunters and gatherers, and not everyone, but I'd say by and large that's how we're programmed. Like, there's a reason why we feel good when we're outside working and the sun's going down. You've been active all day working outside, on your property. Like, you're made to do that, right? There's a reason why we feel terrible when we've been laying on a couch all day long watching football, eating snacks, and you're like, gosh, I feel like I need to move. Like, this is not right, because we're not made for that. And neither one, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with watching football and hanging out, but I mean, there are times where, you just got to think about, like, what are you built to do? My son killed his first deer last weekend, and I'm not, someone's not into, if you're not into deer hunting, you're listening to this podcast, that's okay. But he's 12, and watching him articulate the emotions that he was going through was so fascinating, because I knew exactly what he was saying, but he was using horrible words. He was using 12-year-old speak to describe, doing exactly what you were built to do, not even understanding why. And I just said, son, I was like, this is you've just become part of the equation. Like, this is what we're made to do. These animals were put here for this purpose. Like, we are to respect them, we're to revere them and care for them, but they're really here to provide us sustenance and food. Like, that's why they're here. Like, look at how a deer is designed. That's why they're so easy to field dress and so easy to like turn into healthy food. Like, it just makes sense. I said, what you've just done is what generations of people before you have done. Like you've just become part of the food chain. No matter what happens, when you live on a farm, you become very in tune with life and with death. Unfortunately, something has to die for you to eat. Period. Something always has to die for you to eat, whether it's a plant, whether it's an animal, no matter what it is. And that is where you have to have absolute gratitude. And that was an awesome conversation I was able to have with my son, where I said, this is now you got your hands dirty. You didn't eat a hamburger and let some person in a factory, do the hard work for you. You became part of the process. You did this. And this Christmas, as we celebrate Christmas together as a family, we're going to take the backstrap from that deer, and that's going to be part of our Christmas dinner. We're going to celebrate that animal and celebrate that hunt. And my son at 12 years old has put dinner on the table, and that's pretty freaking awesome if you ask me.
It's very awesome. It really is. That's one thing that I'm not necessarily disappointed about, but I didn't grow up in a hunting family. My father didn't hunt. He was very busy just trying to make ends meet. So I wasn't super exposed to it. So I never really got into it. And that's one thing that I definitely want to pursue more in my life and be able to share with my own children is hunting.
Well, I think it all starts with perspective, right? Like the perspective of just, like I said earlier, like something has to die for you to eat. Let's be grateful for right now we have food. Something was sacrificed for us to exist and continue, right? And you can start hunting anytime. Like Joe Rogan, who so famously, just did a pretty big interview. He is known for being like this avid hunter and bow hunter and this and that. He's only been hunting for like 5 years, but he did it with Steve Rinella from Meat Eater. Those videos are on YouTube if you want to watch them. They're actually great videos. And this is back when he was still kind of like more of a comedian, less of like a iconic guy. And just watching him go through it, he just, at the end of the video, is like, yeah, this is perfect. He's like, this is exactly, like, I'm addicted to this. I want to do this from now on. And I think he only eats wild game now. He doesn't buy commercially processed stuff. And, I'm not trying to turn the listener or the viewer into, an avid outdoorsman or outdoorswoman, but all I'm saying is that when you see people that enjoy that process, it has nothing to do with taking life. Like, that is not it. It's participating in the food process. And it's knowing that deer that my son harvested, like that deer had an amazing existence and life until the very end. Now, a car could have killed it, illness, sickness, another deer, like coyotes, whatever. But its life was free range and not caged up and not held someplace, which again, I understand, like commercial farming is important. We need to eat. Like, we're human beings. This world was put here for us. Like, I'm not begrudging someone who, goes to In-N-Out Burger or Five Guys and eats a burger there. That's totally cool. I don't care. But my point is that, that animal's had no captivity, no shots, no steroids, no nothing. It is 100% free range, wild organic, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not passionate about organic or not organic. I don't care. But I know that animal was treated respectfully. And there's also, in my mind, if I eat ground meat specifically, I'm in a rural area. Like, we can get phenomenal fresh protein, and you know that you're going to get ground beef from one cow. There's not 787 cows that were all mixed together, and you're getting the byproduct of that at Sam's or Costco. And if that's what you can afford and that's what your family can do, amazing. Like, it's a blessing to eat, again. But, there's something to be said about getting your animal back or processing your animal and knowing exactly where it was, where you got it, where you killed it, what it ate, where it lived. There's something nice about that.
I think that crosses over to raising animals to eat as well, because the life of that animal, that it was treated humanely, and that what you're eating is what you put all that time and effort and love into. Mm-hmm. We don't have any at the moment. I don't have any cows, but like on the farm, we always kept some cows around. Now, we were a horse farm. We weren't a cow farm, but we raised generally like 4 to 6 cows at a time, pretty much all the time. Yeah. And we used those to feed ourselves. And then when we would sell like halves and quarters off, and that essentially would offset the cost of
Yeah,
us
you're free.
eating.
It's free at that point.
Yeah.
You're using your land, and that's a way that you offset the cost of the land. But yeah, I mean that's not uncommon, and you're exactly right. You know where your food is coming from, and that's I think that's a big problem in our society right now. Is that I said this on our live show that one time, it was one of my hunting videos. Somebody said, "I don't understand why you don't just eat the meat that they make at the store." And I was like, "They don't make meat at the store.
They don't. Yeah. They don't. And if they do make meat at the store, don't eat it.
No.
You shouldn't eat that stuff.
No, you really shouldn't." And we're beating the hunting stuff into the ground and those things. But I mean, that's part of who we are. We're just we're people that, as far as my family goes, we really respect the land that we're on, but also, I mean, we want to have fun on it. Like we rip around on ATVs and four wheelers, and we get tractors out there, and we improve the land, and we plant food plots to help the wildlife, and we just love being out there. There's a different feeling getting sunshine on your own land than it is just standing in the middle of a street. Like it's just a different feeling. I'm sure you felt it too.
Yeah. So we've got some property. I don't know if we were recording this portion, but we got some property next to the horse farm, or about a half mile away from the horse farm. And there's nothing that I want more than to put a house there and move my family there. It was some property that my parents had purchased when my dad was looking for more hay ground. There was a local farm that sold off all of their land, and he went to them like first thing off, right? So he was notified that they were going to be selling, and he went to them as like, I want this section here. And they're like, okay, well, it's not really, they haven't divided up all the property yet. And he's like, I don't care what you do with anything else, but divide out this section here, and I want it. And it's a beautiful piece of property. And my mother that was kind of her oasis, right? So it was right down the road from the farm, but it was a getaway from the farm.
Yeah.
And
they set up your dad.
Yeah. Well, even with him, just getting away from, because we had a boarding stable. So there's always customers there. It's not you alone on your farm. You have other people that are coming because they have horses there. So it was a getaway from that too. And they set up a camper, and they had a play spot for with my sister's kids, because I didn't have kids at the time. And, like swing set and sandbox, and like that's where they hung out. And just actually this past Columbus Day, we spread her ashes on that property as a family. And
your mom?
Yeah, there's nothing that I want more than to move my family there, so I get that. Well, it's a matter of when, that's our goal, right? That is our dream. And then when we get to that point, developing that property into something that is more self-sustaining,
right?
Because right now it's just a piece of property. There's no power, there's no water, there's no anything. But developing that to where we have animals, we have gardens, we have that life, essentially our little micro farm.
See, man, I hear that so much, and just, you already have the land, don't wait too long, man. Like, work that way. Have faith, man. Yeah,
we're actually talking about building a shed or a cabin of some kind, a small one there this spring, doing something.
Yeah, I love it, man.
So yeah, that's our goal, right? So like, ultimate dream is to put our family house there, and then we can pass that down to our kids. So that's.
I had a conversation with my neighbor. Again, he's 71, and he's a young 71 though. I expect Guido to be around for a very long time.
Lively.
What's that?
It's a lively 71.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. He's fun. And we had the conversation about, I question if this generation will be the last generation that will even understand what it's like to run around on 100+ acres. My son and my daughters at any time, like, I can't tell you how many times I have comments of people saying, you have no business letting your son ride a four-wheeler. I'm like, my son he got a dirt bike when he was 5. Like, this is not new to them. This is their reality. And they can go up to the barn, grab any machine they want, with the exception of two, because they're, well, I have I'm sure you know, we have a Massimo T-Boss 1000 that we're demoing right now, and then a Candy Cowboy E10K, which is an electric one, and both of them are extremely powerful, like fast. Like the electric one, believe it or not, is super fast. So we're gonna take it slow with those two. But anything else, I mean, they can grab any of the side by sides. They can grab four wheelers. You know, they have to wear helmets if they're on the four wheeler, and they're free. Like our driveway's half a mile long. They just go. We were at Guido's one time, and I gave my son, when he was 11, the keys to my new Chevy Silverado 2500 Duramax, and I said, "You drive us home." He's 11. He's like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Well, what's the matter with you?" I was like, "Better you hit a fence now than, you know, an 18-wheeler later. Yeah, drive it, man. Let's do this." Like,
And that's what being a farm kid's all about, man.
yeah, and listen, it's expensive, and I know exactly his skill level, so I didn't feel like I was taking, you know, it was maybe a 1 out of 100 risk, because he's been doing it since he was a kid. And I'll have comments sometimes from people in areas that they can't comprehend or even fathom what that freedom is. They don't get it. They're so wrapped up in whatever system is telling them that, like, this freedom doesn't exist. But I'm like, guys, my kids grew up this way. I don't know. You know, it sounds like your kids will, and I hope, you know, I pray my kids will, that they're going to raise kids with land and freedom, because I think that's one of the biggest things in the world right now, where you see arguments, is people just really, they don't even sometimes know what they're fighting for. You know, their freedom is intoxicating. It's everything. It's worth fighting for. It's worth dying for. And that freedom of being on a big piece of property and letting the wind blow through your hair, and, you know, no one's looking at you. You're not doing it because there's a camera on you. We spend so much time out there without cameras, you know, just after school, or, you know, after work, or whatever it is, like just being, you know. And I mean, that's really sweet time. And I'm, you know, the long-term plan of that farm is to give them just roots, like absolute roots, that wherever the Lord takes them in this world, that should be the place that they know they can come back, and they'll know every blade of grass on that farm. I just think it's awesome.
You know, I don't regret that my parents sold the farm that I grew up on, mainly because it wasn't that kind of farm. You know, it wasn't a farm that we had
strangers.
Yeah, it wasn't a farm we had to ourselves, but the property down the road, you know, that was something that we had to ourselves, and we continue to. And, you know, this Columbus Day, you're talking about kids and four-wheelers. I've got 3 nephews and a niece that were there. So my sister has those children, and they were up there, you know, Columbus Day weekend when we spread mom's ashes, and they were out their four-wheelers, and the kids were just having a great time. You know, my one nephew is 6, I think. And man, he will jump on Sportsman 500 and he is gone, because that's the life he lives. You know, I mean, they have four-wheelers. They've got 26 acres themselves. You know, and I think back to myself as a young farm kid. My dad probably gave me way, way too much room. You know, I remember being under 10 on a John Deere 4020, raking hayfields and tedding hayfields solo. No one else around. I mean, I'm this little kid on this 100, well, I don't know how many horsepower, but I think it was around close to 100 horsepower tractor, just out there doing my thing. And I loved it. You know, I love that. I want to give something like that to my own kids, you know, and I think it helps develop you as a human too.
And
to the people that say,
spirit, it starts with giving them that spirit.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. And the people that'll say, like, kids, like, oh, you know, why are they doing that? You know, when I was, by the time I turned 12, I used to travel to horse shows with my mom and my sister to back up the truck and gooseneck trailer, because my mom wasn't comfortable doing it, especially around all kinds of people. And my 12-year-old self, like, I didn't care. I didn't care if there was people around. Like, I didn't feel like any kind of pressure, you know, like she did. But I was good enough at it that was my job. I used to go to the horse shows just to back up the truck and trailer.
That's awesome.
You know, and I was 12, you know, so saying that an 11 or 12-year-old can't ride a four-wheeler, like, that's crazy.
Well, you have to kind of meet people where they are, right? A lot of
True.
times it's people on the West Coast. It's people who don't understand that, I say it all the time. I'm raising a man. I'm not raising a boy, right?
Hmm.
At some point in time, I'm raising someone's future husband. I'm raising the father of my future grandchildren. Like at some point in time, if I'm not around, he needs to take care of my wife and my girls. Like there's a responsibility there when you're a young man, and I'm not putting that on him right now, but I need to prepare him for those things, and I need to prepare the girls for those things too. And there are times where I have to get on him because if he doesn't talk to his mom or his sisters right, I remind him that that's my wife and my daughters, and nobody talks to my wife or daughters that way, including him. So there's a spirit that you have to teach them, and you also have to build them into being something more than a child who has no exposure to anything. And then all of a sudden they're sent out into the world, and we wonder why. Sometimes you run into somebody or you run across someone who just, they seem completely shell shocked by the options and the freedoms that they're given. And you're just like, well, have you never exercised the freedom muscle or the option muscle? Or like, what do you want to do? I don't know. You're just like, well, let me make the decision then, because I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I've done this quite a few times, and you have to meet people where they are. And I think that we, as people who live a certain lifestyle of land and machines and knowing how to do those things, I mean, there are things that I don't know that I'm not good at, and I try to take that spirit of like, the great thing about a YouTube channel like I have is interacting with people and bringing people into your reality so they can experience it, and then also learning something about theirs. I ask questions a lot in comments when I answer them. The part that I'll share that with you in a second. The hardest part about my channel, but I'll try many times when people are like, what kind of redneck goes out there hunting, or I don't understand why X, Y, Z, or why would you do this? Why, like, you just like, well, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that, and let's dig into that. Now, tell me what's your experience, or where do you live? And I mean, a lot of times it's people who are overseas, or it's someone who grew up in a city and they just don't understand. And then sometimes that conversation will even go down the rabbit hole to, I've always been fascinated by farms. I've always been called to living on land. I've lived in a city my entire life. I don't know why I want to live in land, but I've always felt called to be on a farm that brought me to your channel. And it's just like, well, man, that's amazing. Like, we could be friends. Like, I could show you some tricks. We could talk about stuff. Tell me about your reality. Like how can I learn from you? And the hardest part about my channel right now, and the thing I'm really kind of struggling with, is that I have taken pride in answering every single comment that I've ever gotten, and I cannot do it anymore. Like, it's gotten to the point where, it's just overwhelming. It's just, there's a lot. Like, you answer one comment and 5 more come in. You answer those, 20 more, and you're just like, I'm sorry. Like, I want to have that interaction. But there's times where I have a lot more time than others, and sometimes there's just, that's probably the most difficult part of doing this long enough and building a community is not every comment is meant to be answered. Sometimes there's just people just want to kind of weigh in, Honda's better than this, or
Sure.
I hate your Chevy, I have a Ford, and those aren't really things that you want to respond to, but anything that's really it's just that's the hardest part, I think, right now about running a channel.
I can see that being tough because I try to interact with people the best I can too. And like, I love going to events. I love meeting people. I'm an extrovert with some introvert tendencies, right? So like, I have some of my own things.
Jake.
Like,
what are you? You're one or the other.
Well, I love meeting people, and I'm an extrovert in that way. But like, I would say like more self-confidence issues, right? Where I feel uncomfortable putting myself out there sometimes, but I love doing it, and I love meeting people. So I like going to shows, talking with people, customers, not customers, I don't care. Somebody wants to know about the product, or they just want to chit chat about something. Like, I like talking to people. So
do you find if you go in a room full of people, at the end of the day, are you tired, or do you want to find more people to talk to?
No, I'm not tired. I am a social person. We could sit here and talk until 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not bailing. Like, I'm a social person. So
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I recharge with people, and you know, I don't want to get it misconstrued either. I don't. It doesn't bother me that I can't respond to all the comments because I feel like they're being cheated. It's selfish. I feel like I'm being cheated because that's one of my favorite parts of the channel, and there's other responsibilities, editing and filming and family responsibilities and other work and stuff to do that have to get done. I mean, I can't film rural content if I'm sitting in front of a computer. Like that's just, that's kind of the hard part about, maybe I should have started a YouTube channel of me just editing YouTube videos. Like, that would have been endless loop of content. But it would be a very short-lived thing because I'd be miserable in about 45 minutes. So
when you were looking for your property to buy it, what factors were you taking into consideration when picking out a property that was essentially going to be like the anchor point for your entire family for the future? Like, that's a big deal.
yeah,
how did you go about that?
Holly and I were married almost 20 years ago, and we have both always wanted to have land. We've always wanted to have a place to spread out. We always wanted to have a homestead, right? Like, that's very calming to us, the thought of having that kind of, again, roots, right? We had looked at tons of properties. We had gone through, so many discussions about things we could afford, things that we would love to have on the property and afford. And then we had finally put an offer on a property, and it was brought to our attention that it was a distress sale, and the people that were selling it did not want to sell it. And both of us didn't feel easy about that, and our goal, we were going to make that property like a property some friends of ours' parents owned, but the husband passed away. The mom had been holding on to the property. And, the whole time we were going to try and duplicate a lot of the stuff they had there. Well, we felt horrible about trying to take people off their land, so we ended up getting out of that deal. We just didn't feel right. The Lord told us, hey, this isn't the one for you. And fast forward 6 months later, it's like Friday afternoon. I'm at the pharmacy at like 6 o'clock at night. It's raining. All 3 kids had strep. I'm getting, medicine for them, antibiotics and all that stuff. Holly calls me and says, hey, our friend's mom is willing to sell that farm that we love so much and that we want to duplicate.
Oh,
Are you interested in going and looking at it? And I said, well, I mean, yeah, let me get, let me get all these prescriptions and we'll get all the kids, their antibiotics and everything. And then we'll schedule time to do it. And then, I'll tell you, it was the Lord saying, hey, listen, you had a plan. My plan is better. And I'm going to make this happen for you because I know how, Joe, you can talk yourself out of anything. Delayed gratification, right? Like you saying, my 52 acres, we're just going to, well, one day, right?
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
God said to us, well, it's not going to be one day. It's going to be now. And then we went and looked at that property. It needed a ton of work. It had been, he had been gone 2 years, and it needed work before he passed. And we communicated that. Long story short, she's like, whatever we need to do to make this happen, you're the right family to own this property. So within about, I guess it was like 3 weeks later, we owned it. It was unbelievably fast. There was zero friction. And it was the kind of thing where like, wow, this just happened. Like, land, the best expression I've ever heard is like, there's two. One is when you buy a piece of property, you can't believe you paid for it. When you sell a piece of property, you can't believe what you paid for it. It's amazing what land will do. And the second one is you don't find land, land finds you. And I never understood that, but this land found us. It was perfect. It had everything. And it had so many more things than I thought that we would be able to afford or have on a piece of property. I think part of the origin of your question too, though, was like, if someone's looking for land, what are things they should look for? The things that were important to me were water. Number one, had to have water, and not just a water feature, but the ability to have a well. If you can't have a well, or you don't have a water feature or some kind of water on that property, it is, it's just not, it's not going to, it wouldn't be something I'd be interested in. We have I've been told of 4, I've been told of 5. I don't know how many acres it is, but a big old pond behind the house that has fish and a dock, and it's just, first of all, it's a blast. It's also super expensive to maintain this year. Which I've complained before in our videos, but it's really nice to have 2 million gallons of water behind the house. No matter what. We have 2 wells on the property. We have multiple barns, but those barns are old. They're serving their purpose right now, but those barns' lifespan is almost over, and that's going to be an investment we're going to need to make. And that house is old, and we're going to have a decision to make at some point. Holly and I plan to live a whole lot longer. I'm 45, she's 45, so I think probably in the next 10 years we'll have to really start talking about, like, okay, is this a house we can age in? Is this a house that is going to? It's just a wooden cabin. It's board and batten siding that's cedar, and there's all kinds of foundation fun going on with it, and gremlins in it, and all kinds of stuff. So it's like,
Fun.
do we keep fixing this thing up, or do we punt and build a home that we can age in? It's also like 7 different levels. Like there's a lot of stuff to it, but you want to have land, you want to have some infrastructure, barns, you want to have some fencing, you want to have a road. Those things all cost money, and I feel like if you're buying it, you're not paying the rack rate because people expect to have those things. But if we were to build that road now, I mean, it would probably be, I bet you it'd probably be $100,000 worth of gravel just for the driveway.
That was the number that was in my head too. It was about $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a
crazy town.
I've got a dirt road on my property. It's in between 2 roads. You can come in on one side and go out the other, which is kind of nice.
That's cool.
You talk about water. So there's not any water there at the moment, but it's all sand, and I know that we could drill a well and hit water. That's not an issue. But we've got this one section of my roadway. So the property's kind of neat in the fact that it sits up higher on one side. There's like a tree line that runs along the side of the field. And that tree line is also I won't call it a ravine, but it's higher than the property next to it. So it's probably like a 50-foot drop right at that tree line down to the next property. So you kind of have like a ridge, all the way around the side.
Drive that one.
Yeah. Well, we've got a washout that we've been fighting forever. Like the water comes down off the field and it hits the roadway and it runs down and it washes out. And I've repaired it and it washed out. And I was there today actually going through, and a buddy of mine and myself were over there and we're checking it out. Like, what are we going to do with this thing? Because I don't want this to get any worse because I'm losing part of my roadway. Mm-hmm. So we're down in the washout and we realized that there's a hole down in the bottom. And we're like, okay, let's grab a flashlight. And we grab a flashlight and we realize there's running water coming out of that hole down in the bottom. And it's like, okay, something's going on here. And that's why this area keeps washing out. It's not just the rainwater off the top, but there's something, underground that's causing this. So our initial thought was like, okay, well, there's probably a spring, because the property below on the bottom side of that ridge, there's a big area that's untillable. It's just too wet. So it's like maybe there's a spring. And I don't know. I talked to my father today, after we talked about there maybe being a spring and me finding water, because I didn't realize there was running water like my entire life, because I'd never gone down into the bottom of that washout. I've always just kept putting sand in it because we have sand. You might have like stone and gravel and dirt. Like we have sand. We have a sand pit on that property. We'll get into that a little later, but, and it just falls off. Like you could fill it all in, you can build it up and it falls off. So I don't know if it's a spring or if it's, my dad mentioned it might be a drainage tile, that he thought one of those washouts was caused by a broken drain tile. So I don't know, but I'm really close to grabbing an excavator and digging it all out and find out what I can find.
You better be careful, because that excavator may dig all the way down to China. So you never really know.
I made that mistake at my house.
Yeah. Sometimes it's, that's like when we had to repair the lake. I mean, or the pond or whatever you want to call it. Over 3 acres is a lake. I learned that. So
okay.
Calling my pond a lake is, I had people say it's a pond, not a lake. I'm like, listen, Buster, you pull out the definition. 3 acres or more is a lake. But when you start doing the math, first of all, it's dangerous. So I don't know how you are on an excavator. Like if you're ice cold on an excavator, go for it. But there's a lot of people who think they are, and excavators are a blast, but they're also very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Like a pro. So on the backside of that dam, I hired a guy named Michael, and I paid him. I paid him a lot of money to fix that dam, but this guy was riding that 20,000-pound excavator like a Bronco. Like it was unbelievable watching what this man did with a machine that size. And we were kind of joking around. I said, what would happen? What would it cost if this dam busted out? Like I get in there with an excavator and I go too deep someplace and it washes out. He goes, yeah, that's going to probably be closer to $100,000 to $150,000 to fix it. And I was like, okay, sounds like I'll pay you. I'll pay you to be the person.
Sounds like that rate that you just charged me was very fair.
Oh,
I appreciate
very
it.
reasonable. It was very reasonable compared to that because, it's kind of like heart surgery, right? Like, I think I'll let the guy that's done it before do it, but you may be amazing on it. I don't know.
So I'm not going to say that I'm an amazing excavator operator because I'm not, but I'm comfortable enough that I wouldn't hesitate to do it.
Yeah.
And if I do have hesitations, the excavator is owned by the friend of mine that was down there looking at the running water.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm just renting one.
Yeah.
So, if he brings over his excavator, then worst case scenario, I'm like, hey, come get in the seat of this thing and do this.
Right.
I've run into those situations. So I had it at my house. Now I decided, remember back when I did the first live with you and Tony?
Yeah.
He mentioned something about bringing something up, and I kind of showed you some property that I was clearing in the back.
Oh yeah.
So he had his excavator there. He brought his excavator over, and I had a grapple and a couple buckets, and we had a bunch of trees we were taking out. Well, I didn't want to haul the stuff off, and I didn't want to just leave it, so I dug a hole and burned it. I just made a big fire pit, essentially. Well, I got through the layer of clay that I was in and ran into a layer of saturated saturated sand. And when I say saturated, I mean like it was the coolest thing ever to work with because it was like you were digging a liquid, but it was a solid.
That's wild.
It was very strange. So like if you had a scoop in your bucket and you're kind of moving it around, it would kind of wiggle, in your bucket because it was sand that was like 100% saturated. And then I got through that and into clay. And I was a little concerned that I got into that water because it's just groundwater. Good reason to be concerned because I came back the next day and that hole was full to the top. So a little bit of a situation there. I uncovered that, I took that clay, that 3-foot clay layer off the top and got into that sand. And now I essentially have a pond. I did take the clay. So we cleaned out the best we could, got the water out of it. I tried to punch through the clay to find something else that water would drain into. That did not work. I wasn't comfortable enough to keep digging.
You should have taken the excavator, just rip the excavator through there and see what happens.
Well, yeah, no.
No, that'd be an expensive problem too.
The one I was trying to dig down further to get past that clay layer to hopefully get that water to drain. But the excavator has a tilt rotator on the end of it. I don't know if you're familiar with those at all.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's got a Encon,
That's a nice excavator.
Engcon tilt rotator. Yeah, it's a Doosan 140.
Oh yeah.
Nice. 30,000 pound machine. Really nice excavator.
That's a good friend to have.
Great friend to have. Yeah.
It's a horrible human being, but he's got great equipment, so hang out.
So that attachment is very expensive. I'm not going to go into details on that because it's not mine and I don't know what it costs, but I know it's a lot of money.
I know what it costs. Yeah, that's not cheap.
Yeah, big money. And I didn't love the idea of sticking it down in a hole further than I could maintain visual eye contact on the attachment with the hoses and cylinders and everything that are all over it. So I didn't keep
the attachment's gone.
Yeah, I didn't want that situation. So I didn't go down as far as I could have. But we took all the clay and got the hole cleaned out the best we could, and then we tried to cap it with the clay and seal it again. And this spring we'll find out whether or not that worked. We capped it, we left it raised up a little bit, and we're just leaving it and not messing with it for right now. But
don't swim in there.
No.
Not come out.
Back behind my place is pretty wet. It's kind of swamp. You go, another 100 feet further into the property, and it's swamped. So I'm fighting a losing battle trying to gain that ground that I'm working on because it's just so wet back there. But I'm optimistic. You know,
You have a lot of trees.
in the swamp, yes, it's all trees.
Take some of those trees out. That'll dry it up some, but
So that area behind, so we have like I think it's like a 60 by 60 fenced area that the previous owners did, and it's like the extension of the yard. Well, the rest of the property past that point wasn't usable, and there was a section of a bunch of trees right behind that fence, and then there was a clearing where it was all grass for a while, and then it got back into trees. So I took and removed all of the trees that I didn't want from that section behind there to dry that ground out. And that's why the excavator was there, was for managing that. Just push the tree over, rip it out of the ground kind of thing. We didn't really do any hand cutting. And I'm optimistic that it's going to dry out. There was a drainage swale that was there that was so overgrown that water couldn't move. So I recut the drainage swale, found a piece of tile in the ground that came from underneath that area where the fence is to that drainage swale. So I don't know if that is drain tile out of the yard or it could be, I think that they used to not have a septic system. We were told that the septic was just daylighting into the backyard when we bought the house. So when we bought the house, we had to put a full septic system in, you know, new tank, leach field and everything. So that might be residual from that. I really don't know. The septic tank that we had was essentially hand dug in brick. The house was built in 1820. So it's old.
That is old.
Yeah. You can't stand up in the basement. It's just, well, I'm 6'4". So, but the ceiling's probably like 5.5 foot tall. And it's all hand hewn beams all downstairs. I mean, there's no floor joists. It's not a traditional new style house, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, I would really like a basement that I could stand up in and that was not primarily dirt floor.
Right.
You know, that'd be nice.
Yeah, you and I hanging out with Tony, that'd be fun. They would think we were his security or something.
Are you coming up to Maine?
I have not been to Maine to any of the shows or anything like that, but we talked about me going this year, but it just didn't work out well. We got some family members who are not doing so hot, so we're kind of managing all that, and then we may do it next year. I'd like to bring Hollywood. That'd be fun.
The Maine tractor show in Augusta that dealer puts on, and I'm sure that they'd love to have you up for that.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I mean,
it's the I've enjoyed working with TYM. They've been fun partners to work with, and I've heard good things about that show. It'd be fun to go there and just kind of talk TYM, talk machines.
It's pretty impressive that one single dealership puts on that show. Like if you look at the pictures and videos of that place,
videos,
like it's impressive.
They must really move a lot of machines. So, but yeah, and that, it all comes down to, with any kind of machine, it comes down to who you're working with, right? The dealer, the relationship there, and they seem to really have it dialed in that area, and people trust them, which is why people buy from them.
They kind of have a monopoly. I don't know about that. Don't be mad at me. I didn't really mean you have a monopoly.
They're probably like, absolutely.
But I mean, they own a bunch of dealerships all over the state, down in New Hampshire. But there's also Kubota dealers, there's John Deere dealers, there's other dealerships up there. But they definitely have a very strong presence in the area. And they're good people to work with. You'd like it. Hank came up last year for the Maine tractor show. I met him there, and that's where I met Tony for the first time. Was at that show, and it's a fun time.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I'd go up there and check it out.
What is your favorite color?
Black.
Why? Is it really black? Mm-hmm. Or is that just the color you decide to wear most times?
No, black is my favorite color.
Mine is orange, and I never do anything with it. Like, it's my favorite color, but I don't really own anything that's orange. I don't wear anything that's orange. So,
see, in Tennessee, obviously University of Tennessee is orange. And and if you get arrested for drunk driving in Tennessee, you have to wear an orange vest and pick up trash on the side of the road, UT thing is you pick up trash on the side of the road, you can wear a Department of Justice Corrections uniform, or you can go to the Tennessee game, something like that, or you can hunt on, during hunting season. So it's but yeah, I like black. I think it's from my musician days. It's just it also doesn't show grease or dirt or sweat is bad or anything else, and it. I say a lot in our videos. It's real life. I'm not out there with a uniform on or like some sponsored T-shirt or today's the day I'm going to wear XYZ sponsor shirt and hit that check mark. Yeah, or I don't have any ITC shirts. Man,
I actually just got these back yesterday, so don't be too mad.
Hey man,
I got a bunch of shirts and I sent them to a local print shop, and it was before the last time I went up to Maine, and I was like, I need these shirts back because I wanted to give one to Tony, and I wanted some for me and Harrison to wear. Who's the guy that went up with me, so I got 6 of them back, and I just got the rest of them yesterday. So I've got some shirts finally. So we'll be able to send those out to some people.
Shirts are great marketing. It's just for me also, 100% honest. Like if I film something and I miss something, like I don't like the intro. Like say I go in there that night, I put the SD card in, I'm like, this intro is terrible, or the audio isn't right, or the sun's in the wrong direction. I could just go out there, refilm it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very simple thing to do. And, I don't really I just have a lot of black shirts. They're all Tractor Supply brand, like the Blue Mountain or whatever it is. Like I don't, something like that.
Okay.
And,
yep.
And they're comfortable. They're cheap. They're like $7 a piece. And if I tear one, which I've done, or I get battery acid on one, which I've done, or whatever, then, just throw it away and get
whatever. It is what it is.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I wear a black shirt pretty much every day for work. I just have black T-shirts.
It's very slimming. It's very slimming.
Very slimming.
You just gotta. But anyway.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you, when it comes to buying a tractor, right? So say you don't have any experience with tractors, right? And you're looking at buying a tractor because you've been through a few different machines and you've dealt with different dealerships.
Yep.
What do you think is good advice for someone that is looking to purchase a tractor?
Be patient. I think a lot of times we get excited because we're guys, right? Like, I'm going to get to go buy a shiny tractor. I'm going to go get a tractor. Like, my family or my wife's on board, or, I finally have the money put together to go buy this machine. And I think we get antsy and we want to go ahead and hurry up and get it done because we have something we have to do right now. But, buy the right machine, as right as you possibly can. And, whatever. I can't tell you how many times I've had people just kind of like question, like, why would you buy a loader? You're never using a loader. Like, you can buy that later. I'm like, what? Or, I only need 25 horsepower, so I'm going to buy a 25 horsepower tractor. It's like, well, you're going to grow into, your skills are going to expand. You're going to get better. Have you test driven it? Are you comfortable with it? Do you have a dealer that's close? Do you have parts availability? Like, there's so many different things that go into. My brother-in-law right now is actually asking me, funny you asked that question, because he sent me a text the other day. He's like, hey, can you talk? I said, yes. I called him, and he's going to buy a small piece of property. He's like, hey, I want to get a tractor. I wanted to get a skid steer, but I have a skid steer, and I told him, I was like, the skid steer is going to tear your yard apart. Like, they're amazing. Track machines are awesome, but it's going to tear the yard up. So
sure is.
Tractor makes more sense. We're talking back and forth. I said, again, I'm sponsored by TYM, so I said, TYM makes a great machine. I think the 2515 or the 3515 would be an awesome size for you, and also he needs loader capacity, not necessarily PTO. He doesn't need to put an 8-foot mower on the back or anything, or a tiller. 4 foot, 6 foot would be fine. And so we talked through all that, but then there's no TYM dealership anywhere close to him. So we're talking through other brands, and it's funny because he's not a tractor guy, and out of his mouth, again, I think Kubota makes a fine machine. I own a Kubota skid steer. So, I really don't think there's a bad machine out there anymore. I think they get weeded out, but he's like, I just can't understand the delta between what a TYM or, the competitors in that price point are versus the premium price brands. And I told him, I said, well, you start talking about ag tractors and stuff, like, yeah, John Deere makes sense. You're going to buy a 170 horsepower tractor and you need service and parts and availability and a shop that can actually handle a machine that size. Sure, go for a John Deere. But if you need a 25 or 35 horsepower tractor, there's a really good chance, they're very, very similar machines, and find something that's affordable, but also something you can grow into, something that will fit in your garage. Like, where are you going to keep this thing? Like, a lot of folks will buy machines and they don't even have a place to keep it. Well, I'll just park it outside in the rain. It's like, what? Where'd the snow? That's a lot of money sitting there under a tarp. So there's so many variables. It's really hard to go into one answer, but I would just say be patient. Really assess what you need it for. Try out lots of brands. Talk to dealers. 100% I would do that.
My advice has always been to people to buy a tractor for the dealership, and make sure that that's a big priority. You want to make sure that they have the capacity to repair that machine. They're going to stand behind it. They treat you well. That makes all the difference in the world. I don't have any brand preference when it comes to owning a tractor. I have a Farmall, I have a New Holland, and I have a Kubota. And the reason we went with a Kubota this time was just the fact that we have a dealer close to us that just takes care of us. We've got a good working relationship with them.
I would agree with you on, I think everything you just said is exactly right. But the only thing I'd push back on is I don't typically take the tractor back to the dealership unless there's a big problem. So I hear people say, like,
Wait, what do you constitute as a big problem, though?
Like my Coyote machine, I had to have it split because the synchronizer wasn't right at 20 hours. Like, that's a big problem. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was under warranty, and they took care of it, and they did it fine. And, it would cause a lot of anxiety because, like, a brand new-ish machine was being split. And it's funny how many people have told me that Coyotes or TYM is not as good of a tractor as Coyote. I'm like, well, the TYM have been great, and the Coyote was split at 20 hours and had a new computer put on it, which, again, it's a machine. That's why you have a warranty, and it's been flawless ever since. So I'm not dogging Coyote by any means. I think it's a fantastic machine. But, the TYM machines have been great too. And, I guess what I mean by that is I'll hear sometimes in comments, you read what people are saying back and forth, like, well, the XYZ dealer is 40 miles away. This one's 60 miles away. So I'm going to go with the one's 40 miles away. It's like, well, I don't think you're going to take it to, you're probably not taking your tractor to the dealership once a month. It may be once every couple years, if that. And, I do the oil changes myself. I strongly encourage anybody who has never serviced a tractor, just try it. If you can screw in a light bulb, you can change the oil on a machine. You're just dumping the oil out, putting oil in, and you're good.
Yeah, I don't mean buy a tractor from your closest dealer. I mean buy one that you trust and you think is going to support you the most when you need it.
Sure.
Whether that dealer is 10 miles away or 110 miles away.
Yeah.
You need to buy for what you think that dealer stands for and their values and, their availability to help you. I think that's super, super important. But I agree. I mean, as far as like basic maintenance, even basic repairs, a lot of people are going to be doing them themselves.
It's just so much
I can only think of one time we sent our New Holland back to the New Holland dealership because the PTO wouldn't shut off. Like, it just stayed on all the time. And we dealt with it for a while, and eventually we're like, okay, we need to get this PTO clutch changed out or, whatever issue it's having. So we sent it there and we're like, we need the PTO to start working properly. Can you just please fix this? And they came back like 2.5 weeks later and said, okay, your tractor's ready to go. And we're like, sweet, what's the bill? And they gave us a bill of like $1,400. And we're like, what was it? And like, oh, well, we adjusted it and we think it'll get better over time, but we fixed some of these lights that were out and we took care of this and we took care of this. It's like, guys, that's not what we asked you to do at all, and we ended up having a private mechanic do it because I didn't have the time to split the tractor in half. I was just starting to start my own business and build my own business. And, I'm 100% focused and dedicated to that, building a business from nothing, going from working full time to somebody else to building a business and starting a business it's taxing.
Right. Oh, 100%.
And I didn't have the time. I had the ability to split the tractor in half. I was a full-time diesel technician right up until I started my own business. So like repairs on equipment is certainly well within my wheelhouse, but I didn't have the time. So we sent it up there, had him split it in half and do that. Got the tractor back, really happy with the service we had from him. But when it came to buying another tractor, we didn't go back to that same dealer.
Yeah.
Or that same brand for that exact reason. The tractor's been really good. It's got 6,000 hours on it. Like, we've worked it hard, and it has just put up with us. Other than, we've had a couple little issues, but that's what I mean by buy for your dealer.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Unfortunately, they didn't take care of us when we needed them to, and because of that, we ended up going with a different color tractor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
6,000 hours, man. You put some time into it. That's what's funny though. You'll see people complain about a tractor, like, oh, my tractor's had this issue. And listen, I 100% understand. It is a lot of money, and you're a diesel mechanic. They're not. They don't understand.
Sure.
Everything should just work for the very first day, for the rest of the machine's life. But it's a machine. It's going to have issues, and it takes time for these big ag machines to kind of, as they say, marry, or that they kind of break in, and you can have issues with them. Like, I fully suspect every machine on my farm, from my Kubota skid steer, my TYM tractors, and my Coyote tractor, and all the side-by-sides I have, something's going to have a problem. And when it has a problem, you just want to know that you can get parts availability and get someone to help you fix it. And my philosophy on machines is, as we talked about earlier in this discussion, is like, my time is at a premium right now just because I just don't have a lot of it. It's not like I'm too good for it. I would love to sit there with you and wrench on a machine for a couple of days and just hang out and just, shoot the breeze and talk while we're fixing stuff. But, runny nose, sore throat, cough, I do that. Brain surgery, I'm taking to the dealership because they're going to have far more time, patience, and equipment to make it happen quickly, get me back up and running. And, I think there's a lot of anxiety with folks about who's going to change the oil on the tractor. And you're like, you're probably not going to hit your brake and oil change for a year, most people. And your second oil change is probably 2 years from now. So,
yeah, I think, and even more, like, a lot of people that we speak to, they're not buying that 75 plus horsepower ag tractor that's going to be worked day in and day out. They're buying that smaller compact, subcompact that they're using for utility around their own property.
yeah.
Where that tractor I'm talking about, that was our primary machine. Like, it was a cab tractor with a loader, and it did like everything. It was mowing hay, it was baling hay, it was moving around all the manure and the sawdust, and we were doing fencing, and we were pulling posts with it, and we're driving posts with it. And it was our one tractor that did everything, which is why I had so many hours on it. But it's been a good machine, but they're also, Tony and I talked about it. A tractor in that 75 horsepower plus class, we start getting into that like ag tractor, they're not built the same as a tractor that's 25, 35, 45 horsepower. They're just, I don't think personally that they're built the same. I think those bigger tractors are built to withstand almost anything you can throw at them, or at least they try to be.
Yeah, well, my big tractor's been great. I've insanely strong. I would like full transparency. I've talked with TYM about potentially getting one of their bigger machines because there's. It'd be great to try one of the 130s, one of the big machines that they have, and cut some hay with it, do some big work with it, because I think that they really have built some beautiful machines, and I think that it'd be nice for the world to see them. But it's a timing thing. We'll see what happens. I'd love to pull my 15-foot batwing mower behind that 130 and just let it rip, because that'd be awesome. Because it really is the flagship. It's almost like they put a lot of time and engineering into making a big, strong, nice tractor.
Have you been around the 130 any?
I've sat in it. I've obviously never run it.
So, hot take, and I might catch some flack for this. I don't like that tractor.
What is it?
The T130. The size.
You think it's too big?
It's too big for the horsepower it has. Yeah, the visibility in it, the overall size of it, for only being 130 horsepower, I think the chassis is just monstrous. It gets into that area where the chassis is so big that you can only do real big tractor stuff. But then again, you only have 130 horsepower, which isn't enough to do real big tractor stuff. You can do relatively big tractor stuff, but you're not going to hook it to, a high density big square baler and get into any kind of hills and be able to produce, any kind of acreage with it, because it doesn't have the PTO horsepower to spin that baler. It's got the chassis size to match, but you look at other brands of tractors that are that size, they're 160, 180, there's just more horsepower. And I think that, I don't know what market they were trying to hit with that, but the chassis of that tractor is just so freaking big that you need to be doing big tractor stuff. And I just don't think it has the horsepower for it.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I'd like to run it. I think I'd like to see what it does. And, if, and we're doing round bales on pretty steep hills, we would stress it for sure.
Now, you have a Coyote RX 73, 75 horsepower, right?
7320, yeah.
Yeah, so does your 7320 do it?
No, not a big round baler. I mean, it pulls my 6,000 pound bat wing barely. It's 15 feet wide. And is that a brush hog bat wing? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's made by Ironcraft.
Sorry, I meant like single gearbox, single blade setup, not like finish mower bat wing.
There's 3 panels, 2 fold out, one basic one, three blades, single gearbox feeds into multiple.
Yeah, okay. So the only reason I ask is that there's also like, we've got not us personally, but some friends have got a 15-foot bat wing that has got, a gearbox on each of the wings, but then runs a belt to 3 blades, and it's really a finish mower 15-foot bat wing. It's not like, you're not taking it out to cut brush and like tall grass. You're taking it out to mow grass to 1.5 to 3 inches.
This is a, that's a great question. Now you're making me second guess that, because I've never really paid a whole, like, you're a diesel mechanic. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to that stuff. I just hook it up and go take down everything with it, because it'll take down a telephone pole. That thing is awesome.
Yeah, so it's got 2 blades per gearbox, or essentially 2 bits of one big blade that have a breakaway to them.
Yes.
Yeah, where the other kind I'm talking about is like there's 3 lawnmower blades underneath each deck.
No.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, this thing is it's the 3105. It's the real deal. It's the real McCoy. It's heavy. So taking that up and down hills, I mean, it stresses that machine. So I putting a round baler on it, going up and down hills with round baler full of hay would make me pretty nervous.
Yeah, also goes back to the size of round baler, because there's different sizes. But no, I could get that. I don't know. Like I said, I might catch some flack for the 130 and not being a huge fan of it.
I don't think you will, because the biggest problem with the 130 and the 115 is finding dealerships that can support them. You have to find dealerships that have mechanics that can handle that kind of equipment, and they need to be able to take a piece of equipment that size in their bay and fix it. Talk about splitting tractors. I mean, you're not splitting that one in a barn. You're gonna put that in an aircraft hangar and split it. It's a big machine.
You're gonna have a tough time.
But I do think that I'll be honest with you, man. I would love to sit in that 130 or 115 with that mower behind me, and I'd mow all day, and it'd be awesome. I think I like the size of that machine. I think it is big, but you make a good point. Like, you're not going to be able to have massive tillage behind it, or some tremendous size sprayer or something behind it. Like, it is a big frame for what it is.
That's my complaint with it, is like, I just didn't see the market to like what your demographic is. Because if you need a tractor that size, you need more horsepower. And if you need 130 horsepower, you don't need a tractor that size, generally speaking.
Yeah.
That was kind of my comment on it.
I think it's fair.
Nothing.
Listen, that kind of feedback, I do think it's a beautiful machine. I think that they've done a good job with it. It would not be hard for them to drop a 160, 170 horsepower engine in that frame. I can't see that.
It'd be perfect.
I think that'd be pretty
that'd be great.
simple. And there's got to be a reason why they didn't do that. But, a lot of that stuff, too, that I've noticed is body panels, too. It's like, Is the machine really that big, or is it just like they made the hood really, really big to make it look really cool? You know,
Well, the platform is really, really high up in the air.
it is high in the air.
You have to, there's a ladder to get into it. There's not a step or two. There's a ladder that you climb. It's got a big cab on it. You've got a buddy seat factory. Like those are great features. And it is for, if you take, I feel a little rude calling it out and saying I don't like it. If you put 165, 180 horse engine in that chassis, like that's a great tractor.
Buddy,
The size
the
of
truth,
it,
man. I'll be
great.
honest with you. If I don't like it, I'm an ambassador for TYM, and I'll say I don't like it. There's, if there's a machine I don't like, I'll say I don't like it. I think it's perfectly okay. I don't think that they're going to care, because the truth is, they built it for someone. Someone gave them research saying that there was a market for that, because they put a lot of time and effort into it. I think TYM is trying to make machines, just like any tractor manufacturer is trying to make machines for lots of different jobs. And, I'm not someone who is going to be like, sponsorship is always a gray area in YouTube. But if I don't like something, I'll just say I don't like it. I mean, it's, I'm going to be fair with something. We had a machine on our farm that we had a prototype and it failed. And the failure points were all things that were fixed prior to the actual consumer model. And I shared that story just because I thought it was the right thing to do and let people know. And I thought it was the ethical thing to do. But like, I'm not bought by anyone. And I know that a lot of people on YouTube say that and people have a hard time believing it. And I understand that. Like, I get the difficulty of saying like, well, they gave you a tractor and you have it free and you're just going to say nice things about it. Well, it's like, well, it'd be a lot cheaper for me just to go buy a tractor than to spend the time and effort in it. And I know that math now because I've been doing YouTube long enough. Like, it is way cheaper just to go buy a piece of equipment and not have any kind of feedback responsibility or, having to make content with it, right? It's just easier to say, well, it's in the barn, I can use it when I want. But some people have trust there and some people don't.
Not everyone makes millions off of YouTube, Joe.
Well, we're a very small group. Between Elon Musk and I, we're worth somewhere around $300 billion. So just the two of us, It is funny how sponsorship does get things. It does make you more of a target than probably anything, but how much of me cares? I don't really care. I mean, people can say what they want. If they get rude or out of line, I just block them. I call it the death sentence. You're blocked. You're dead. We have a little funeral for you, and then you don't get to watch the channel anymore.
So, yeah, no, occasionally you'll get people commenting those kinds of things, like, like the bias of someone who's sponsored, and there's definitely bias out there. I'm not saying you. And I'm not saying, Tony or any other people that are sponsored by TYM. I'm not saying any of them. But as far as like content creators and sponsorship, there's a certain amount of bias that goes into things, kind of as a whole, and it's good to see people like you and Hank and Tony that are honest and have morals and are willing to call people out when something isn't right or isn't good or you don't like it. It's kind of refreshing to see. I mean, like the one product that we sent you that we had some issues with, like you weren't like, hey, I'm not going to post this video because we had problems. It was like, hey, I had these problems. You should probably fix them. By the way, video goes live in 3 days. you know?
Well,
and
I don't think I was.
I appreciate that.
I don't think I was that coarse about it, but I mean, the truth is that, the people that watch the channel become our friends. Like, I wouldn't, if you asked me, like, hey, Joe, what do you think about XYZ side by side? I'd say, well, this is what I like about it. This is what I don't like about it. By the way, that is part of our responsibility as ambassadors for the company. Everyone thinks, hey, we're going to send you something free and we just put it on your channel. No, a lot of it is giving them feedback. You customers, if you're listening, you don't give them good feedback. You typically will give them feedback when there's a problem. We can let them know, hey, this was an excellent experience. Or, hey, this is not a good experience. Fix this because this is going to give someone a problem in the future. I think that feedback with people who are accustomed to using certain pieces of equipment is helpful to them because they don't have to pay people in the field to go out there and test it. They don't have to get a piece of property to go test it. They're not going to do the same stuff that we do all the time because listen, like I may use my pallet forks for a pallet once a year, but I may use them to do all kinds of other crazy stuff the rest of the year. So it's like, hey, how's the loader working? Well, when I was doing this, and this, not just, okay, pallet up, pallet down, done. So probably, that's a simple example of something that we do. But like, I have a piece of equipment coming tomorrow from Baumelite that is a prototype. There is no other one. I think there's two of them right now in the world, and they're sending it to me saying, test it out, try it, tell me what you think, give us feedback because we don't want to build however many they build, and they're like, hey, by the way, this won't hook up to the PTO because there's an issue with it. This tolerance is too tight. Or, they make a brush mulcher that I have, which is the MP560, which is phenomenal. Awesome brush mulcher. The thing is an absolute beast. And it's a category 2 brush mulcher. And I said, well, hey guys, why can't this be a category 1? Like, what? I don't understand, like, why can't you just drill an extra hole here and then just use the same top link hole and then just make it a category 1 or category 2? And they said thanks for the feedback, and they sent back a whole CAD drawing of the exact tool with category 1 and category 2 pinholes, and said, hey, great suggestion, thanks so much, but this is now going to be a category 1, category 2 piece of equipment. So from them sending us a free, machine, we were, I was able to give them that feedback, and now it opens up a completely different market just by drilling 2 additional holes. So it's just stuff like that where, I'm not trying to justify it. Anyone can start a YouTube channel. I had a guy one time tell me, must be nice. That's my favorite, by the way, must be nice. And,
must be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, must be nice getting all this free stuff. I blah, blah, blah. I can do this. I can do that. I have a better farm than you. I would work it harder. I do this. And I wrote back, I said, you know what, man, you're probably 100% right. You could probably do a better video than me. You have more experience than me. You have a better farm than me, and you would do a much better test than me. So why don't you go ahead and get a YouTube channel, get a camera, start building a community. Once you build that community, then you can start negotiating different things, talking to different sponsors, and then go and get a sponsor. Then you can show them how great a video you can make. I never heard another word, but it's like, well, that's the hard part. The easy part is testing the equipment, and also the easy part is communicating with these equipment manufacturers and, trying to make them make us better products. They want to make a better product. Jake, you own a business. If I use one of your pieces of equipment, I'm going to call you and say, dude, this makes no sense. Like, you need to fix this. Why are we not doing this? Why is this hole here when it could be here? Like that. And that's not because I'm being critical or because I don't like you. It's because, like you said about the TYM 130, that's good feedback. They may listen to this and be like, hey, can we put a 170 engine in there? Yeah, no problem. It's easy. And there's a market for it. I don't know. I mean, my little caveman brain seems to think that stuff sounds simple, but they may not think so. But I think that in the spirit of, the sponsorship thing, I know that that's everyone's favorite topic to talk about with YouTube. And, specifically TYM, I had a lot, like tremendous amount of kind feedback of people saying, so excited to see you guys join the TYM family and, get feedback on machines and operate them and do all this different stuff. And there's a handful of people who are just like, I had one guy say, oh, great, another TYM guy. That means that we all have to pay more for our tractors to give him his free tractor. I'm like, buddy, like, have you never read a business book or anything like, you just watched this video on this tractor because they sent me this machine to use and to show to you. You just got exposure to it. There are tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people watching, actually millions of people watching TYM influencers use those machines, and they don't have to spend as much on marketing.
Yeah, part of their marketing budget just gets reallocated. Marketing is crazy expensive. I don't think people don't understand that, how expensive marketing is. That was a shock for me in this business and needing to grow the business, right? Marketing is just so expensive.
Well, I think, and 99 out of 100 people get it. They're like, hey, listen, we totally understand. And again, I would say, you know, I'm sensitive to it because I had a friend of mine get his integrity questioned, which is not right. You don't go question someone's integrity on the internet. That's ridiculous. You know, this platform, YouTube, is free. It's open to all of you. Anyone who wants to
Mm-hmm.
start a channel, anyone who has a passion, anyone who has an interest in something. And please don't take this as me being like stern or condescending. I don't mean it that way. I'm trying to encourage others to, you know, get a camera. You have one on your phone. Start doing videos. If you're passionate about starting a channel, don't watch others do it and then get frustrated because they're doing it. You're not. Pick up the camera and hit record and start doing it. And it's going to take time. You'll work harder than you ever have. And I'm not saying that because, you know, I'm just saying like it's going to be a lot of work, but that work will be rewarding in that you'll be creating something. You'll be building a community. You'll be making friends. You'll be having a great time. And when people come to you and say, hey, is this something you'd be interested in using? And it is, well, it gives you an opportunity, A, to make content, and B, have some fun working with some new equipment. Like I, I'm not even a huge YouTuber. You know, there are some monster channels
Mm-hmm.
out there, and I can only imagine what they're presented with. But I get probably 5 emails a day with different products asking me if I'll put them on my channel. It's
Really?
everything. Oh yeah, every day.
Wow.
Now,
Hmm.
some of it may be a flashlight, some of it may be a couch. I've had women's exercise clothing they wanted to send me. Like it is, I don't know that y'all want to see me in women's exercise clothing, because that would not be pretty. But you know, it's constant, and the things that I get excited about are typically, well, they're not typically, they're directly related to what we do. You know, it would be
Mm-hmm.
a something that's going to make my tractor more useful, something that's going to help me get around my property, like a side by side, or like I've done some things that are kind of funny, like that little Jeep was fun, like that was a good time because it's just cool. Like I think stuff like that, you see it, you're interested in it, you're like, hey, I wonder if this thing's cool or not, and it was really neat. You know, Greenworks. I work with Greenworks on a couple things. We've done some projects together that were really fun because I think the electric thing is fascinating. You know, it's YouTube. This is my channel, and if things that are exciting to my audience and to me are things I'm going to do. Like the Baumolite relationship is fascinating because I can do the work of 10 men so quickly. You know, my ITC quick attach saw boss that my friend Jake sent me, sponsored item. You know, that thing holds my chainsaw and it's brilliant. It's so stable and it's so like sturdy that it's really nice compared to the one I had before. And I really like the fact that it can come off and then be hung on the garage wall and not have to sit on the tractor bouncing around. If I'm going to go in a rough hayfield or something, I could just take it off. I'm not doing any tree work that day.
Mm-hmm.
So don't have any of the toolboxes and that kind of stuff. But hey, my ITC quick attach stable is going to be expanding very quickly.
Did was that a slight like, hey, maybe some of the toolbox for me to check out, or
It wasn't a slight at all. You've been great, man. And I'll tell you what I love about this YouTube thing is that we had an issue with the TYM 2515H and the 35, that like that backhoe. That was a problem because big old fellas like you and I can't. That big hoe or that backhoe is unusable. You know, it was dangerous almost. And
tough?
yeah, and you within, you know, and for the listeners who don't know, Jake came on Tony from Tony's Tractor Adventures in my show. We do a live show called Homestead Live. And it's really just, we call it our campfire chat. We just enjoy talking. And Jay came on there. He's our guest. And we were talking a little bit about the things he does. Well, we told him about that challenge with that 2515. He went back and built a bracket for it. And within about 10 minutes, you can make that backhoe insanely usable and so much more comfortable, so much safer, extremely sturdy. And it's under $200. You know, why would you not? If you spent $7,000-8,000 for a backhoe, that should be mandatory. And TYM should call you and buy that design from you. And it's just crazy that, you know, something so simple like that makes your tractor so much more enjoyable.
Well, thank you. Nice of you to say, and thank you for the suggestion. That's one thing. Like you're talking about the feedback that you're giving back to manufacturers on the stuff that they send you. I'm on the other side of that. I'm the manufacturer sending things out into the field and getting feedback. And I get feedback from people like you and people like Tony and other influencers that we work with, but I also get feedback from customers. And I love getting feedback from customers. Things that they like, things that they may wish were a little bit different, things that they would like to see implemented in the future. Like, I love that feedback. And we recently just did we changed up our ITC Sawboss. Excuse me, that was said horribly. Our ITC Sawboss. So the plastic spacers, at least two of them, the ones that set the they set your gap, right? So they're not the big wide ones. They're like the little narrow ones on the side. We had one of those break on a customer's chainsaw carrier. He was pulling the chainsaw out and put a lot of side load on it and snapped it off. And I was like, okay, I want to prevent this from ever happening again. So I just changed the faceplate on that. So the front plate, instead of just being a flat plate, is now a plate that has two 90-degree bends that cover the sides of the plastic. And it did a couple things. One, it made it look better because you now have a powder-coated metal transition right to powder-coated metal, where before you had some plastic in between the two. And it made it stronger, and why didn't I do it from the first place? I don't know.
You didn't know. You didn't know.
I didn't. But I got the feedback and we made the change. And now going forward, we have a better product, and it was thanks to a customer that had an issue and reached out to us. No, so I definitely, I'm on the other side of that. Like, I like getting feedback and I like hearing good things too. I mean, maybe that's, I don't know. I don't think that's like an ego thing, but I like hearing when our products help customers, especially my favorite customer. I will tell you, my favorite customer is the 70-year-old couple or over that bought a T25 and they're calling me because they're having a hard time getting up and onto the tractor and they want a step. Okay, that is my favorite customer because they call me to get, like, this happens more than you would think. They call me together and the wife is available for any questions that the husband forgets to ask. And then she has other very important information like email address, shipping address, card information, like she has that, so he goes through and he asks a bunch of questions and then he's basically like, okay, we're doing this, and then hands it over to the wife. But I always end up in like really nice conversations with those people, because I like to ask too. I'm like, okay, did you just buy this tractor? Okay, how did you hear of us? So like those are standard questions that I ask people when they call me. But I find that the older couples, they just, they'll chit chat and you hear some stories of like why they bought the tractor. And then next thing you know, we're 15 minutes into a conversation on something kind of not related, and I think those are like some of my favorite interactions that I have. So,
yeah, I think that's the, I listened to your, podcast you did with Tony, and I know the sponsorship was that he kind of hit on some of that stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that I reiterated and helped share that story of how a lot of it is feedback, and some of the best partners that a company would have, again, it's like, why would someone take the time to send me an email to send me women's athletic clothes or a couch, or that kind of, like, that's just crazy town, right? But when you're working with someone who knows what your product is going to be doing and they can help you, the UTV manufacturer, I work with multiple UTV manufacturers, and I actually have probably two more that I'm going to be working with going into next year, which is kind of nuts because, it's just something I enjoy doing. And when I'm not having fun doing it anymore, I'll stop. But like UTV reviews are a lot of that network talks to one another. Like, they know each other, and they are referring me to each other because of the feedback that I'll give them. And that's not like I'm patting myself on the back. That's just saying, like, I understand that machine. I understand what it should do, what it should have, how it should operate. I did a review recently on that Cowboy, which is it's made by Candy, Kandi. Mm-hmm. And listen, if y'all buy 1,000 of them or zero, I don't care. Like, cause I don't make a nickel on them getting sold. I just got to test the machine out and have some fun with it. And it doesn't have A-arm guards. So one of the first things I did was, I said in the video, I gave them feedback. It needs A-arm guards. Like, it needs to have that. That's a mandatory to me. Second thing is, I don't like the colors. Like, I think that my wife really likes the colors, but it's probably going to be a guy buying an all-wheel drive electric UTV they're going to take out on a farm and go hunting with. Now, let's not take anything from the ladies. My wife will absolutely use it. But you're going to want to appeal to both. And there's just things like that that are kind of layups that don't cost them much more in manufacturing. I mean, you know what steel costs. I mean, what's it cost to weld a little plate on there to help protect your AR, or like the CV boots? Like,
Yeah, that's a relatively inexpensive thing in the
like
grand scheme of
$2 a
things.
machine, like, and
Yeah.
that's just that's just that's a no brainer.
Even
So
if it
that
costs
kind
you
of
$100, that's still a no-brainer. You're buying a machine like that with, I mean, those CV boots, like you showed in the video, they're wide open and,
yeah,
really ready for impact. And
yeah.
I think anybody that spends any amount of time in side-by-sides and four-wheelers, they know that CV boots, they go, and then you're going to end up changing a whole CV shaft. And yeah,
Yeah, it's
so,
just it's a job that doesn't need to be done. And again, it's not about the
mhm.
CV boot; it's just about the feedback. And I love when I get questions from the audience or the viewer, and they want to know more about something, because it really also helps me in doing future reviews of how, hey, I missed this, or I glanced over this too quickly, or you know one of the glowing or glaring issues that's been brought to my attention that I need to get better at is when I like music. I'm a musician, guys. Like I've said that. I've been a musician my whole life. I like to put music with video, and as the music changes, have the video change, and kind of like let that flow become part of the story. Because again, that to me is very relaxing and enjoyable. Well, when I'm doing a machine review, I've had a lot of feedback saying, stop it with the music. We want to hear the machine work. Well, yes, I understand that, but I've also had to respond sometimes saying, hey, not all cameras have audio. So do you want me to have other machine, like the audio carry over from before, or, and then have no audio
Mhm.
with just the previous clip? So there's some things in there that some of that feedback's helpful for us as creators of saying like, hey, help us see what you want to see. Because I don't make the videos just for me to watch them. I like to share them. But yeah, I think that when we talk about product reviews and those kinds of things, I do think that it becomes very interactive, and to some extent it becomes polarizing. People don't necessarily always like to watch other people get to try something that they don't get to try also. But again, I go back to, this is a free platform. It is 100% accessible. Go build a community, and I mean that. It is. I did it. It's awesome, and I would encourage anyone to do it.
So I watched that video with that Candy electric side by side, and I think that machine's pretty cool. I don't know if I would buy it, but I would consider it. I like electric. I know that most people in the, I don't know if you want to call it like a rural community, are kind of anti-electric, but I think a lot of people are very hesitant. And, I am to an
I was
extent
shocked.
with
I was
with
shocked.
some things. Electric can be awesome. I don't think that going to all electric cars is going to save our planet. That's not what I'm saying here. And I don't think that electric side by sides are going to be better than gas side by sides, but they have a place and a purpose. And I come from a horse farm where we were conscious about how much noise equipment made, because the last thing you need is a 12-year-old girl that's getting a horse lesson and, go flying by with some side by side that's super loud and spooking that horse and that kid falling off getting hurt. Right. So like just because you don't like something doesn't mean that there isn't a scenario where that thing is absolutely perfect. And on that farm, that would have been. We didn't use side by sides for that reason. We used electric golf carts.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have an electric golf cart that was lifted. Wasn't 4-wheel drive. Used to get it stuck all the time. But, that was our go-to because we had to be conscious of noise.
Well, I think that there's, and again, we as content creators feel like we need to go ahead and put it out there. What's our incentive, right? My incentive is 0. I get 0 for saying anything nice about that machine. I don't get commissions if you buy. Well, actually, if you buy it, I put it on the Amazon store just in case somebody wanted to buy it on Amazon, because you could literally buy that machine on Amazon. Please go buy one, because that'd be awesome. Because I think I'd get like 2% on that or something. But so I could have incentive there. But my deal with any company I've ever worked with has always been 100%. I get to reserve. I own my content, and they can reuse it. In that video, I gave them permission to. They asked for permission. I said, yeah, if you want to use it, go ahead. I mean, it's out there in the public domain anyway. But no one is ever going to give me a script. There was one company that did it, and it was a trail camera company, which is kind of funny because, you know, when I first started, I love trail cameras. We have cameras everywhere. I just think they're neat. And I hunt. So I did some trail camera reviews, and I had one company it's one of the higher end ones. I was like, hey, everyone keeps coming back to me saying, you know, I should try your camera, try your camera, try your camera. I was like, would you be willing? I'm not asking for anything for free. Would you be willing to send me one for like 3 to 6 months, and I'll send it back to you, or donate it, or do whatever you want? You know, it's funny how locked down they were. They sent a contract. They sent all kinds of stuff for like a $500 trail camera. And I said, listen, it's going to cost me more money to pay an attorney to read this contract over than your camera's worth. And they wanted me to, like, they had to have first right of refusal of the video. They can demand me to edit it. They all kinds of, I was like, listen, we're so far, I'll forget it. Never mind. Like, I'm out.
Yeah, not having it.
So I say all that to say, like, judge my integrity as you want. I know where my heart is. And I was really shocked by that machine. Like, I thought it was going to be golf cart on steroids. Has a really nice suspension. You know, I thought it was way smaller, because they reached out to me and, you know, and just said, hey, you know, we love your videos. You've done on side-by-sides. Would you be willing to put one of our products on there? I was like, and I knew that they sold like golf carts and stuff. And I was like, I think golf carts are super cool, but I'll be honest with you. If I do a golf cart, I'm probably going to do a video or two on it and then donate it or give it to a friend, or, you know, do something else with it.
Find a local horse farm.
Yeah, or find a local horse farm. But when they mentioned that cowboy one, I had never seen it before. And I was like, you know, this thing kind of looks futuristic. It looks kind of cool. It had a 2-inch receiver. They said it could tow 2,500 pounds. It has all-wheel drive, lithium battery technology, like all this stuff. And I'm like, man, this is actually looking really cool. I was like, okay, let's talk about what your interest is. Like, these are the things that are deal breakers for me, which we've already talked about. Like, I'm not going to become your pitch man. Now, I'll use it. I'll test it out and do some things with it. And they were like, no, 100% do what you do. Like, that's the beauty of being, you know, I don't want to say established, but like farther down the road now than earlier, because I don't have to explain what I'll do, because they already know. They've seen it. And they, you know, they can trust their brand with me. I'm not going to go out there and be like, this thing's a piece of garbage, and that, you know, because that would get a lot of views and a lot of clicks, and that would make me money on YouTube. But that's also like, my audience doesn't want that. We're not the extreme, right? So I think I gave it a really good test.
I think so too.
It showed up. I mean, I put it to work. I put it up and down those hills. I spent 5 hours filming that video, doing all kinds of different things with that machine, and I could not believe the power it had. Like, it is comfortable. It is very spacious. It's got some weird quirks to it, but like, listen, I'm a hunter. That's why I was interested in an electric machine. Not because there's horses around, but again, you scare game. It's also very pleasant to ride in an electric machine. So when you say that the rural community is rejecting them, I kind of disagree, because I think that the biggest reason people are rejecting them is price. You're seeing, you know, I did a video on the Rocca golf cart last year, and they have sold a ton of those things. And it's to rural people who are like, listen, it may squeak some. It may not have all the power in the world. It's lead acid batteries, but it's $8,000. And we don't have $25,000 for a Polaris Kinetic, or $30,000. No, actually, I think it was $35,000. Like, that's crazy town. Who's spending $35,000 on an electric side by side? You know, when you can buy a golf cart for $8,000.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's just like, it's bonkers. But this one's about 12 to 14, which is still, it's a lot of money. But when you get into lithium technology and all-wheel drive, and, you know, the suspension and some of the other things, like, it really is. I really agreed to it because I thought it was something that my audience should see. Like, if you're interested in that solves a problem for you, and that's a need. Like, listen, there's a lot of folks out there with land who need tools, and $12,000-$14,000 isn't the end of the world for a cattle operation, or for a horse farm, or someone who says, hey, we need something that's going to be a little more quiet. And here's another example that you may not know. There's a lot of folks who have children with disabilities. Some disabilities are very sensitive to noise. You know, I don't want to sit here and call them out because I'm not a doctor, but there are disabilities where some children are very, very adversely affected by loud noises. Well, this may be an opportunity for someone who says, you know, it's a couple $1,000s more, but now we can get, you know, my loved one in there and go for a ride and see a sunset or something. Like, that's priceless. What is that worth? So I'm not here to sell you one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying it was way more impressive than I ever thought. And I still can't believe there's not an inverter on that thing where you can plug something in, but I told them that and they're 100% working on it.
Are they going to do that? Because that's
I
pretty
think they
cool.
are.
Yeah.
They're going to do it. And they're also going to do a model that I requested, which they're going to do it in OD green, and they're going to do it with black
Camo?
wheels. I don't know if they'll do camo because camo has a licensing to it. Like a lot of people don't realize camo's harder to do, and a lot of times it's licensing. So unless they have their own pattern, they may do the I told them they should do a sportsman edition. We talked through that. You know, again, they didn't pay me anything to say that. I was just giving them feedback and saying like, you know, do the Candy Sportsman series. You know, put some gun racks on it, hood rack, put some 110 plugs. I mean, you have a 10,000 watt or whatever it is battery in that thing, where you can just plug stuff in and charge it up. Like, it to me, it makes a ton of sense. And I used that thing again it was 5 hours towing my Ventrac with it, going up and down hills, driving around, going back and forth to the barn, get cameras, get this, get that. And it had like 55% battery left at the end of the day.
I think that's people's biggest concern is like, I mean, my gas side by side, when it runs out of gas, I put more gas in it.
Yeah, ranging.
You know, and that's definitely something to consider. Me personally, I don't own a side by side at the moment, and it's something that would be super helpful, especially, you know, moving to that other property and trying to develop that. I don't see that particular unit being out of the question, because I think that 12 to 14 for that is a very reasonable price compared to anything else. I mean, it's tough to buy a like gas model for that same cost that has the same capabilities.
Yeah,
so
there's
I
some
think
things
that the price is good.
Yeah, I thought the price was incredibly reasonable. You know, durability, we'll see how long it lasts. You know, am I gonna, you know, is it gonna last 5 years? I don't know. Is it gonna last 20 years? I don't know. I mean,
do you have it forever, or do you have it temporarily and sending it back?
I have it pretty much as long as I want to have it. You know, if I want to, I don't know that I can. I don't know that I should go into that aspect of it, but like, there's no urgency for them to get it back. As long as I'm making content with it, I can keep it on the farm as long as I want.
That's cool. Well, I think it would be tough in a situation where you're giving something like that to test, and then as soon as you're done testing it, put out a video, they're like, okay, we would like that back.
Well, so
like,
here's the truth. It's a gray area in that I don't know. Like, I have a lot of machines on my farm that have been sent to us to test, and I would never feel comfortable selling them, like monetizing them that way, because I don't necessarily. It's just a gray area, right? It's not. That's not why I'm doing this, but a lot of them are set up as long-term tests because I want to see. I want my audience to get involved and like connected to a machine, right? Someone may come find my channel because they've seen me on my Ventrac. Well, I bought the Ventrac. So that's, you know, or the TYM 5520, right? They come to the channel because they're considering buying one. They say, wow, this guy Joe has one, and you know, yeah, he's a partner with TYM, but let's see that thing work. Well, I will. If it needs repairs, I will tell you. If the whole thing falls apart and they need to rebuild it, I will tell you. That is my commitment to my audience, because my audience to me is more important than TYM Tractor, because I don't have a channel without my audience. I have a channel without TYM, you know, and that's just being real, and TYM knows that, and they're super great to work with, or else I wouldn't be working with them. But in communicating that to a company, like when Candy said, we'll send you one, you know, there wasn't like, well, I want it for free or this or that. It was my audience is going to get connected to this thing and want to see how it does long term. Right? Someone doesn't just say, oh, I saw this guy use it for in a 30-minute video, I'm just going to go buy one. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but maybe they want to see what it's like in the wintertime. I had a lot of comments saying, I can't wait to see how those batteries do in the winter. Well, we're going to find out. And if they don't work well in the wintertime, I'll tell you guys, hey, if you live in Florida, it's awesome. If you're in Minnesota, maybe not for you, you know. But that feedback is what's going to be shared. And I think people need to see through multiple seasons. You know, I've had a relationship with multiple side-by-side companies, and a lot of times I didn't realize how important it was for people as they got bought in to a certain machine. They're like, hey, I bought that machine because you have one. Did you get rid of it? And it's like, well, I would hate to say, yeah, I just made some quick money, made a couple videos, and you guys went and bought one. Haha, now I'm using this one. But the fun part about it is that, like, well, I've got this one, and what's different about them? Maybe one is better for Jake, but the other one's better for Joe. Like, it's just, it's just part of the content process, right? Making content of things. And, at any point in time, though, any of these companies can come pick this stuff up. So, and I can't stop them. TYM included.
I'm still lobbying for some kind of gauntlet tests with a time trial. Seeing how things stack up against each other. Put that Ventrac on the trailer, set up some cones a certain distance apart.
Not doing it. Too dangerous. I'm not. Listen, the Ventrac as it sits is probably about 2,000 pounds. The trailer is probably another, 1,200 pounds. Like, I don't know about that. Like, that gets a little dangerous.
So maybe don't use the Ventrac. Maybe bring it down to like a total of 1,500 pounds behind it within rated towing capacity. Maybe don't overload it. But just kind of seeing how they stack up against each other would be kind of cool.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you come to the farm and help me film it, then we'll do it. I think it'd be fun. Okay. I was shocked, though, to see how that electric one performed up that hill. So if anyone who's listening, we have a hill on our farm. It's a pretty steep hill. It's not insurmountable. Like, you can walk up it, but it's going to be, you're going to be huffing and puffing by the time you get up to the top. And we've had issues with, I've done a test with a golf cart, and the golf cart made it up there, but it got down to like 9 miles per hour by the time it gets to the top. They just don't have the juice to do it. An electric one, or excuse me, a gas one, 500cc machine, it can do it, but it definitely takes some oomph to do it. The electric one that we just did the test on, the Candy Cowboy, it flew up that hill like there was nothing. Like, it was like picking up speed going up the hill. It was unbelievable to see that happen. And I've taken a lot of machines up that hill. I have not taken the Massimo 1000 up that hill. There's a story behind the Massimo 1000, which we'll get into, at some point. But I need to tell that story when that story's coming.
When it's time for that story.
When it's time for that story.
Yeah.
It's fun having. I mean, listen, I'm not stupid. I understand how amazing it is. Like, I'm so blessed, like, to have the ability to play with these machines and put them on film and share with you guys. And like, God is good. It's just a testament to how his plan's so much better than ours. Like, it truly is. It's a privilege to do it. I understand my responsibility to be honest and to have integrity as I do these things, because for anyone listening to this or watching this, like, you're going to spend your hard-earned money on tools. I get that. I totally understand. My responsibility to you is to be straight up and honest. And, I hope you guys enjoy watching the videos. I just want them to be entertaining and have some fun. And, I appreciate the opportunity I have to do it.
What do you say? We'll hit you with that one question that I texted you. And then we've been talking for over 2.5 hours at this point. We should probably wrap this up.
Yep.
As much as I don't want to. It's almost 10.
Yeah.
The question that I had, I had this question, and I wanted to ask Tony, and Tony and I didn't get to it before my camera died. So I'm going to ask Joe.
Okay.
And I'm going to preface this question with kind of a scenario. Right, so he's building out his homestead and his land and his farm and his property, and he's obviously, going down this road that some other people might want to do. Right, so the question was, if you already own land, right, you have a piece of land and you own it, whether you bought it or you already live on that land, and you have a tractor with the necessary attachments to maintain your property, right? Because like those are your big purchases. You've got your land and you've got your tractor with your attachments, and from there, building out the homestead kind of comes.
I assume you have a house
after that.
Place to live.
You have a place to live, yeah. Whether it's on that property or on another property, like Tony's homestead isn't on the property that he currently lives in. yeah, assuming you have housing, you know,
Okay.
what if you had $10,000 to spend on developing your homestead and to become more, you know, self-reliant and, you know, living off of your own land and kind of building something out for yourself, whether that's tools or whether that's, you know, animals, you know, where do you allocate that $10,000 and why? Because I feel like that $10,000 number is something that's reasonable for a lot of people that are trying to, you know, make that step into more self-reliant homestead living.
Yeah.
So as somebody that has experience doing this, what would you do?
There's some variables there, and some of the variables be like, do you already have water at the house? Do you have a well? Like, do you have, you know,
Yeah, I'm going to assume that you have
power
water.
and all that stuff? Water.
Yeah,
So,
you know, you have power and water, but you're trying to build out your extras and really develop your property further.
well, I think to develop your property further, you know, for $10,000, it's not a ton of money for the things you may or may not need, or may need, I should say. But like, first things first, a generator. Like, it could be a cheap Predator generator, like it could be Harbor Freight. It doesn't matter. Just something that can generate power, and a wood stove. I think a wood stove is incredibly important. You need to be able to survive if it gets very cold and keep the house from having your pipes burst. Ask me how I know. We put a wood stove in after we had an ice storm, and we kept losing power. Remember when I said my driveway is half a mile long? Well, the power lines are half a mile long too. So when our power goes out, they don't think a whole lot about us, because we're one customer, you know, in a couple hundred acres, and there's maybe 1,000 customers, a couple hundred acres in other places. So that's a lot more squeaky wheels. I think that water is going to be my first concern. So if we already have water, second would be power. Power, if that's already taken care of, I would say some kind of redundancy plan for power. And, you know, again, a generator, I would get a gas generator. I also still have, you know, I talk about these things all the time. You know, Massimo is a company I work with. They sell these, but they've never told me what the prices are. We were going to do a project together. We never did. And now I just use those things.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So this is it's like an electric power bank. So you have 110 plugs, you have USB plugs, you have all kinds of stuff on here. And I promise you, I literally have, like, they're on their website, but they were going to sell them cheaper. And they sent me like 5 of these things, all different sizes. And we were going to do a video project together. We never did it. And they never wanted them back. So I use them all the time, like all the time. So those things could be uninterrupted power supplies. You can plug them into the wall and it's emergency power. You can make an outlet wherever you want. Because if I want to go edit in the corner, there's no plug there. I just bring one with me, plug my laptop in, and edit in the corner. So, you know, power is important. Wood stove's important. Wood stove's probably, I think we paid about $2,000 for the stove and for the chimney and everything to be installed. I'd say a couple generators, like get a solar or a plug-in one, plus another, you know, gas power generator. It's probably another $1,500. So we'll say $3,500. There's a couple of other things, like I really like a freeze dryer. I think a freeze dryer has really grown on me. If you're going to be building out your food storage, be building out some kind of larder, then I think that's a pretty good way to go. It's about $2,000. They're not cheap, but.
And so for somebody that isn't familiar with freeze dryers, what is it and why? Like, why does that fit the bill?
A root cellar would have been traditionally what's more common, where you dig out a root cellar, you throw your potatoes down there, and they're good throughout the year. Well, if you have a homestead and you're preparing lots of food or growing food or harvesting food through, you know, animals, if you freeze dry it, it doesn't need to be refrigerated. It can be stored at room temperature in a cabinet, and it's safe for up to 30 years. And then all you have to do is reconstitute it with water, boiling water preferably. So things like strawberries, like anyone's ever had like the cereal that has like flakes and the freeze-dried strawberries, those are freeze-dried strawberries. You can put them in a jar. They'll stay like that if you take the air out of it for a long time. You know, again, that's food. You start thinking about your necessities on a homestead, right? You know, you have power, water, food. You know, we have shelter. We've talked about that. But, you know, a freeze dryer can help you make a lot of food that will last a very, very long time over time. Because no matter what, if you are trying to be self-sufficient, you're going to have a year where you don't have a good crop, or you don't have rain, or you don't have, you can't gamble with that. There's no option. So, that's 2,000. So we're talking about $5,500. I think that some kind of security, take that into account, however you'd like to. We'll allocate 1,000 towards that. So what's that? 6,500.
That's fair.
Where are we at? 6,500.
We're like 6,500. Yeah.
Why don't we go to 7,000? Because you're going to need some freedom pellets for the.
Yep.
So
security extras.
That's right.
Redundancy security.
Yeah, and then I think that if you have all those things, I mean, you're gonna. That's why I said 10,000 is not enough. Like if you don't have a side by side, they're super handy. I mean, I almost question if a tractor is more valuable initially than a side by side, but that's a tough one. I mean, I could argue either side of that discussion, but ideally you'd have both. Or go get an old golf cart or something, just something to get you around. And
you've never done like 18 miles an hour on a dirt road with a tractor, just slamming all over the place.
Oh, I've done it, and when nature calls and you're a mile from the house and all you've got is the tractor, it's a different vibe. So,
well, I mean that's why you wear tall socks. You can just sacrifice the top half of the sock if you need to.
Fair enough. It's just small stuff like that. I think if money is no object, you'd have a side-by-side or at least a small ATV or something that can help you out with sprayers and things to help you do some work. And just tools, like you said, like you're going to need at least a backpack sprayer, right? Something to get chemical out there. You're going to need some seed spreaders. You're going to need seed. You're going to need that kind of stuff. So I think it's a cool question. It's fun. It's almost like asking somebody, hey, if you won a lottery, what would you buy? And it's like, oh, man, like we can go through the dream phase. But, we are so blessed to have bought our property when we bought it and how we bought it, because there was tools in the barn. Like there was a lot of things that were there already to care for the property, specific to that property. Now there's a lot of stuff there that we didn't need, that we don't need, and it's hard to throw stuff away or give it away or donate it because you don't know if you're going to need it at some point. And if you're on a homestead, you really kind of need to have everything, and at some point you may need it. So. Harbor Freight is a heck of a place to go, or what's another tool place? Like, I don't want to seem like I'm bought into Harbor Freight. Like a cheap tool place, where you can buy a hammer.
The only one I can think of is Harbor Freight.
Yeah, you go buy a hammer for $3 and an axe for $4. Go buy 4 each, 5 each, and you just have extra ones, and good boots and work gloves. Good socks.
Yeah,
good
that's
boots and work gloves.
that's something that probably overlooked is good boots and work gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you'd be amazed how many people give me a hard time for wearing gloves.
I'm not a huge glove person. That's just me personally, though. I'm not going to give somebody crap for wearing gloves.
Well, I tell them
we've always called them bitch mittens. We haven't called them gloves in a number of years.
Well, it's funny how many people say that. I'm like, listen, I've played guitar my whole life. Like, I'm trying to take care of my hands, and as you get older, it's just. I don't know. I just don't really want to get another barb through my hand and wait a week and a half for it to heal. And I'm just not interested in that. So like you're fixing fences, you're banging your hands all the time. You're like, I can't tell you how many splinters I pulled out of my hands. I just don't like, if I don't have to do that, I don't want to do it. So work gloves, great socks, good boots, and an extra pair in case something happens to that one. Extra shoelaces. Like it's just stuff like that. We kind of plan ahead about stuff, Tony's like, I'm not a prepper, but I'm a full blown prepper. Well, I'm prepared and I think ahead, and, we have extra toothbrushes and extra, you never know if somebody's going to come hang out and come visit and then they forgot the toothbrush or something, like you're the hotel. So what would you, I know we're trying to finish up here. What would you bring?
Well, I'm not in any rush to leave. I don't want to keep you too long. I'm not in any rush though.
No, I probably do need to get going.
So I think I'm on board with that freeze dryer. Very similar list. I think one thing that me personally, chainsaw, like a good chainsaw,
Good one. Yeah.
whether that's a used pro model chainsaw off that you buy, online somewhere, whether it's Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever.
It's got to be pro model.
But I think I do think that buying a pro model saw is worth it. I think honestly, I believe that.
So you wouldn't buy an electric chainsaw?
Not to rely on for a homestead purpose. Would I buy an electric chainsaw if I had one that I could rely on, as a homestead?
I'm not
main
an electric
utility saw.
Like big electric guy, but I have 4 chainsaws, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I've told you this before. The one I use all the time is the Greenworks chainsaw. It's phenomenal.
So I don't have anything against electric chainsaws, but kind of
Sounds
in
like
my
you do.
scenario, like you need to heat your house, right? Do you want to go out with your electric chainsaw and have that be your only option? Or do you want a chainsaw that's designed to run day in, day out and you can rely on? That's kind of my stance on it. Now I'm not familiar with that electric chainsaw,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
can't say.
There's I think that could be an entirely different conversation. Like that could be a 2-hour conversation.
Think so? There's something to be said about electric being simple, right? You have an electric motor. You don't have a carburetor and little jets and, all of the little intricacies that
Well, that's
are
the thing is
involved.
the adjustments. It's the constant adjustments. Like
On what? Gas
on a
chainsaw?
gas chainsaw, or the filter getting dirty, or mixing gas if you don't buy a premix. Listen. I have all of them, and I enjoy using all of them. But I come to these kind of like epiphanies sometimes where I'm like, okay, well, I haven't touched those other chainsaws in a while. That electric chainsaw must be really good, and mine is a Greenworks, and it's very powerful. But I'm agnostic, man. If you have a different brand that you like better than Greenworks, go for it. But I will say my neighbor had a DeWalt, and I'm a huge DeWalt guy. I love DeWalt tools, but he had a DeWalt chainsaw that died. It was electric. But the other video we just put out recently, I was cutting creosote-soaked, old telephone poles with that Greenworks chainsaw, and it just cuts them like butter. It's a great saw. And I can recharge it with the sun.
I have not personally had any experience with those. So, maybe you might be onto something there. Maybe something that I don't. The experience I have with electric chainsaws has been DeWalt and Echo. So Echo makes a electric chainsaw, and it's nice for what it is. I wouldn't want that to be my only option if it came to heating my house.
Oh, I think it's fair. I think it's very fair.
So I think
what's really nice?
that's at least where I'm coming from.
You know what's really nice?
Hit me.
Is they all fit in the ITC saw boss.
They do. They all fit well.
Even
And very well held. Yep.
Because I put a picture, I believe, on Instagram that had the ITC saw boss holding a Greenworks chainsaw.
I'm gonna have to check into that.
I think I
I'm
did.
gonna have to go find that.
I
Yeah, I mean I don't know. My father was an arborist before buying a horse farm. So chainsaws is another one of those things I was introduced to early in life. We live in an area surrounded by campgrounds because we're right on a nice little creek. And he had me start a little firewood business when I was like 11 or 12. Like that's kind of the little thing that he made me do to learn the value of a dollar and learn a work ethic is to do firewood. So he bought me a MS 170, and halfway through my first cut with it, he told me to turn it off, and he literally grabbed it out of my hands and threw it and said, "We're not wasting our time." And we walked up to the garage and grabbed his old 044 and said, "You get to learn to run a chainsaw with this." So that was my introduction to chainsaws. So I guess I'm a little partial to steel for one, and two, that like 70-ish cc saw, it's small enough to do limbing with, but at the same time, it's as much of a chainsaw as you could need.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, man,
You know,
I've enjoyed it.
My own bias.
I've enjoyed spending time
Yeah,
talking, and I've got a big day tomorrow, so I appreciate you having me, and
I
everyone
appreciate you being on and listening to me ramble for 3 hours and rambling back.
Absolutely. We're the Ramblers.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. I definitely appreciate it. I would like to have you on this again.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
In the future.
In the future.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us, and we'll see you later.